Okay, guys. Sorry, we're just a minute late. I'm waiting for Lloyd. It's my fault. Everything happens at last minute. So, welcome everybody. Hit the like button. You cannot comment unless you subscribe. Did I have it on slow mode? Hold on, I don't have it on slow mode yet. 1 second, peoples. People are people, so why should it be? 1 second, let me set it up. All right. Edit. 1 second, people. Your love, O Lord, reaches to the heavens. Your faithfulness reaches to the sky. All right. All right, Lloyd, I'll bring you up, but just give me a second, Lloyd. Let me set up on my. I need to do this as well, guys. Give me a second. He's in backstage. I'll bring him up, but I gotta also get it to work on Facebook. Last minute, everything happens. You see, the Holy Spirit, in His grace and mercy and love, is going to bless Lloyd and bless us through Lloyd, because things happen. Sometimes the spiritual attacks get very bad when there's going to be a great blessing. So from a couple of days ago, the attack started. And right now, you see I'm running late. So glory to the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. 1 second, Lloyd. Let me just get this ready. Lloyd, I love you, man. He's a good man. He's got a set of skills, but because he's gracious, he only uses it in self-defense and doesn't use it against brethren. 1 second. Let me do this. Come on. All right. We're ready, man. We're ready for Lloyd, man. We're ready. Are you here, man? What's up, brother? For Lloyd.
Hello, Sam. Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for being here.
Now,
all the things.
There's a 16-second delay. And brethren, praise God for this man. God has blessed him with knowledge, intelligence, devotion for the Lord, and physical skills. And the brother is gracious. He's turning the other cheek, because let me let you know. He didn't say it, I did. You guys know that I probably have ADD, meaning that when I'm doing a session, I read comments, and then people go off topic or talk about something that's important but not related. I get discombobulated. So this poor brother, I ended up removing him and blocking him from my comment section. And he was gracious enough to control himself, say, listen, Sam, I won't comment on your comment section anymore. And he left it at that. But I know if I was close to him, he laid hands on me and bless you. So thank you for being gracious, brother, because you have a set of skills.
People, Sam. But yeah, let's see. Sam, what did you take away from our last session on atheism? What have you learned from it? How have you used it? How's it been effective for you? And how's it changed your insights?
Well, you've actually, as I said last time, and hopefully you're going to dive into it, you've shown me that, to me, I'll be honest, atheism is much more dangerous, much more vile, much more evil than even Islam. That's what I walked away with. I'll be honest with you. That's my impression. Now, sadly, in the comment section, you have atheists who don't know the roots of atheism, who are pretty much trying to demonize the talk, because being unaware of the history of modern atheism. I mean, we know atheists have always existed. Psalm 14 verse 1 talks about people who are fools who would say there is no God. But the thing is, modern atheism is clearly satanic in its origin, and it's anti-Christian. A lot of atheists don't know that. I had to block someone from my live stream because he had listened only to the last 20 minutes of your conversation. And he goes, look, I'm an agnostic. I know atheists. I know they don't believe any of that stuff. I go, because you're ignorant. You guys are atheists, not knowing the roots of modern atheism. So this is why this series is vitally important, and the Holy Spirit anoint you and fill you for the glory of Jesus Christ. We need to know the facts that led to the rise of modern atheism. And I'm emphasizing modern atheism. Although there's been atheists from the beginning, modern atheism is anchored in an anti-Christian, anti-biblical, anti-God worldview that's pretty much satanic. Now, by the way, even before you begin, you blew me away with a quote. Maybe you want to share it. I know it's not the topic, but God willing, my channel is your channel. And as long as God gives me health and holiness, you'll have a platform here. You blew me away when you quoted from Martin Luther's Table Talks, where Martin Luther said Jesus is an adulterer. Could you share that?
Real quick,
atheism. and I'll share screen share.
Here it is.
And by the way, as he shares this, the link to his YouTube channel is in the description box, and I'm going to pin it. Brother, can you tell us this quote, which I also shared as a community post, because you had put it as a community post?
Yeah.
Can you give us the context and who said this?
So this was said by Martin Luther. It is written in his Table Talks, and it's called Christ the Adulterer. Now, the Table Talks are discussions that Martin Luther had and were recorded by his friends, his followers, his fellow students. And I'll quote this one. It's called Christ the Adulterer. Christ was the first to commit adultery, as in John 4 at the well with the woman, because they said, "No one knows what he is doing with her." Also with Mary Magdalene and with the adulteress in John 8, whom he let off so lightly. Therefore, the righteous Christ also had to become a fornicator first before he died. In fact, I believe in the German he uses the term fornicator.
Wow. And this is not misquoted, because I know people are saying, no.
No, in the German, it's Christus Adulter. Christus ist am ersten erbrechen worden. And he says, bei dem Brunnen, cumuliere. So there's a bunch of Latin there. Sorry, no, there's a bunch of Latin. So yeah, it's not all in German. Also muss der vom Christus auch am ersten ein Erbrecher werden. Starb. So he had to be, so the thing is, he's calling Christ an adulterer. Now, Christ did not marry, so Christ could not be an adulterer. So therefore, Christ was a fornicator. You understand there's a distinction there. And then also, now people claim, Lloyd, you're taking this out of context. First of all, there is no context. There is just this quote that was said very bluntly. Now, people say, well, they try to excuse it by saying that Martin Luther was talking about how Jesus took on all the sins of the world. Well, Luther specifically speaks of that in various writings, and he speaks of it in that context. Here, he is making three explicit condemnations. He's accusing Jesus of sleeping with three separate women, of fornicating with three separate women.
Damn.
And then additionally, I think I should add that, for instance, in context, where does he say, well, Jesus had to murder somebody to take on the sin of murder? Jesus had to diddle a baby to take on the sin of pedophilia. Jesus had to rob somebody to take on the sin of theft. Understand? So there's been attempts to excuse, well, he was drunk when he said this. Now, there is a reasonable chance, a fairly good chance, that he was drunk. That is also true on many an occasion. But it's also possible so there is no defending this, because now any comment that people try to give context to this is utter speculation. It is speculative defense at best, and dishonesty at worst, to try to pretend. This is like with Muhammad. It's exactly like Muhammad. Well, what Muhammad meant was, it's the miracle of reinterpretation, but for Protestants.
Yeah. There you go. This is the fruit. This is the fruit of Protestantism. May God awaken Protestants to the fullness of the truth, and to see their roots is nasty, because it's anchored in this demon, this demonized, mentally ill individual. And I've heard there are reports that he was mentally ill, but we'll bring you on to discuss that, because you're here to destroy atheism. So, brother, the Lord Jesus anoint you. The floor is yours. I'm here to facilitate.
So, yeah, someone mentioned the Gnostic aspects of Luther, and I will talk about that in the future. Here's an issue, though. The story of Martin Luther it's a minefield. There is so much positive propaganda in defense of him. There is also, I think, lots of negative propaganda which could have been put out in defense of him, because once you quote something falsely, then you can be embarrassed by someone saying, hey, you quoted a false piece of information. So there are so many false sayings which need to be examined for their truth. So at the moment, and also it's very hard to find all of Luther's works in the original German, and many are edited, many have had passages removed. So at the moment, I am going through Luther's works in the original German. And that's a very slow process, because, I mean, I speak German. When I was younger, I spoke it much better. I spoke it much more often. I'm okay with it conversationally. If you drop me in Germany, I can survive just fine. But to have to go through this in detail is a lot slower now, because I have to do it in German, because I want to know what the original phrasing was. Because I don't always trust the English texts either.
That shows you his research is painstaking, and he wants to be meticulous, and he wants to be spot on. because he doesn't want to be mistaken. And God bless your efforts. And guys, you have his link to the YouTube channel. I pinned it. Support him prayerfully and financially. Now, brother, I'm here to facilitate. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks. Well, while I'm here, let me show you something else. This is called Muslims and Citizens, Islam, Politics, and the French Revolution. Now, we've just spoken about the French Revolution in the previous episode, right? And it says, a groundbreaking study of the role of Muslims in 18th century France. From the beginning, French revolutionaries imagined their transformation as a universal one that must include Muslims. Muslims too saw an opportunity, particularly as European powers turned against the new French Republic, leaving the Muslim polities of the Middle East and North Africa as France's only friends. Which is, oh wow, that's interesting. The atheists and the Muslims, tight buddies. Muslims came to participate in the political struggles of the revolution. And in the book, we've got interesting titles such as this: Paris turned Turk or Ottoman, wow. The Turban and the Axe, The Turbans of Liberty, Islam in the Temple of Reason. And don't forget, the atheists established their Temple of Reason, their cult of reason. And Muslims in the Temple of Reason, the Muslim Jacobins, and Robespierre Muhammad.
And this is written by Ian Collins. Good. And you're researching
in color. And then it says here, several objects held in evidence, including the axe with which the Turk Ahmet Bender killed and wounded several people on the Ausher Barge in October 1787. So you had Muslims killing people with axes then already. Like, wow. Just,
with an axe?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Killed and wounded several people. If this has to do with the French Revolution, I don't know. Or if he was fighting in support of the French revolutionaries, I don't know. Here's another interesting one. Selim moves from sympathy to vengeful wrath, declaring his regret that the Korda, the Ottoman version of the garrote, which is used to strangle people to death, was unavailable to the French to dole out instant death to the enemies of the people. This is a Muslim comment. You know what? Why is Islam, why does it have its fingers in everything I go look at?
Yeah. You see a tie, right? With Islam, Protestantism, Islam, Reformers, Islam, Atheism, Islam, Occultism, Islam, Gnosticism. It's all mixed in.
Yeah. Someone says here, Luther loved to talk about excrement and farts. Actually, he had a serious issue with, I think it's called coprophilia. I'll mention this one here. For instance, this quote here. Luther is deeply rooted in the 16th century in his own appalling ego. This is by Lyndall Ropert's book on Luther that I'm looking at the moment. When he was a monk, he would spend 6 hours making his confession because he considered himself incredibly sinful, and you had to listen to him speak for hours about his confession. Okay, a large part of Luther's story, right, is the sheer coarseness of his language, the deranged coprology. It's coprophilia. Luther would speak endlessly about excrement and farts. He had a thing for talking about human waste. Right, that fed his many hatreds, in particular of the Jews and of the popes. The devil has emptied his stomach. In other words, the devil has pooped, okay, again and again. That is a true relic which the Jews and those who want to be a Jew kiss, eat, and drink and worship. So the Jews eat, kiss, drink, and worship Satan's, what he leaves in the toilet. He stuffs and squirts them so full that it overflows and swims out of every place. Pure devil's filth. Yes, it tastes so good to their hearts, and they guzzle it like sows. This is holiness. This is St. Paul, St. Peter, St. John could not write words as beautiful as this. What do you think, Sam?
I didn't know this man was mentally sick. I don't study Luther. The man was mentally sick, wasn't he? I mean, a guy that talks about Satan's excrements and
there's a lot of statements about excrement in Luther's work. So the Pope was castigated by Luther as a sodomite and as a transvestite. The Holy Virgin, Madame Pope, St. Paul III, right? And he says, come here, Satan, and if you had more worlds than this, I would accept them all, and not only worship you, Satan, but also lick your ass. He ended his diatribe. All of this is sealed with the devil's own dirt and written with the ass Pope's farts.
That's how Luther wrote, huh?
Yeah.
No, a guy. Let me share some with you guys. You may not know this. When a guy speaks a lot about crap, urine, ass, that means he was sick and fascinated with that particular area of the body. That means there was something going on with him psychologically. He was disturbed, demonized, but he must have had bowel problems. There must have
He
been
did.
some.
He suffered from endless constipation. In fact, a lot of his stuff he wrote while on the toilet, apparently. Now, look, again, anything I say about Luther, needs to be verified, needs to be checked. And that's a very difficult process. But apparently he wrote a lot of his crap on the toilet.
Yeah. He probably used the toilet paper to write it on. Yeah. No,
So yeah, I mean, and also, for instance, one guy disagreed with him, right? Simon Lemnius, a pupil of Luther's ally Philip Melanchthon, who became Luther's successor. Luther said he would no longer preach in Wittenberg until Lemnius was executed, and then Lemnius was executed.
Wow.
So Luther was a man of peace, obviously.
Yes. Now, sister's asking this question. Rachel Sezovich, was this information concealed about Luther? Because a lot of Protestants know this.
So from what I'm finding in the English versus the German, I've just started on this. It seems that in English, a lot of these stuff have not been translated or simply just left out and ignored because it's embarrassing. It's just like the hadiths about Muhammad. So literally everything that I post about Luther that's a weak hadith. Like, Lloyd, the Table Talks were written 10 years after Luther died. Well, do you know the Gospel of John was written 60 years after Jesus died? So the Gospel of John is unreliable. The New Testament must be thrown out. Right, Sam?
That's exactly the argument of people like Bart Ehrman. So they're arguing like atheists. Exactly. 100% on the money. I can't wait to do research and do Luther. I want you to do Luther here. Because people, Protestants, this is your heritage. I'm sorry to tell you. Don't think you're going by sola scriptura. You're not. Protestantism is the fruit of Luther and the Reformers. And you see that Luther, the man that celebrated, was a sick, demented, demonized pervert. May God save us from his teaching.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about Luther. There are so many disturbing things. I mean, for instance, there's a quote here. Let me go find something quickly. Now, I'm not going to get into the source of this, okay? But for instance, here's a quote. Now, this is a quote in an article that I'm looking at. Let me just quote this, okay? The church has called religiously irrelevant the evidence that the peace-loving family of Luther, Luther used to throw dead cats into the rubbish bin. Now, I'm trying to trace all of this stuff, to trace their authenticity, but this is in an article published on the basis of archaeology that was done from 2007 to 2015 or so. Over 5 or 6 years or whatever, there was archaeology done of all the places Luther lived, and they've discovered a lot new information about him. So my question is, why would the church have to weigh in and say it is religiously irrelevant that, Sam, how many dead cats do you throw into the bin each month? Sorry, I can't hear you. Sam, you're muted.
Sorry. I'm like, what you just said just shocked the heck out of me because, number one, I never liked cats until I found a stray cat. There was a stray cat that now came into my apartment. Now I'm attached to her. I can't get rid of her. To say that they would take dead cats and throw them in the rubbish bin, I don't know what more proof you guys need. This guy's one sick, demonized tool of the devil. He was not from God. He wasn't. Yeah.
So look, now again, all of this I have to go back and find the original sources. I can show you guys the article I found this in. This is legitimately in an article by a journalist in a newspaper on the basis of her looking at the new archaeology on Luther's life. Okay. But seriously, look, don't take this as me making a specific claim. But I mean, this statement exists, okay? Whether it's true or not, we still have to go and verify exactly. But was he doing rituals with dead cats that required him to throw them away afterwards? I mean, why would the church have to say it is religiously irrelevant? Was there a religious question around the dead cats?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. To connect throwing dead cats into a bin with something that's irreligiously irrelevant. You know, there's something not right in this guy's mind, right?
Do you understand? I mean, what if it was like birds with their wings chopped off? You know, what if they were found lots of birds with their wings cut off, for example? Then you'd go, well, hey, I know people who do things like that, and they're not well, right? So, for instance, now another thing that apparently, according to the article, again, don't assume this is true, but the article states and this is what I'm investigating still, that Luther, there's a story of Luther walking in the rain and in the thunderstorm, and he's concerned that he's going to be killed, right? And he prays and he says, if you save me from the thunderstorm and you don't let me die on my way home, I will become a monk. That's the popular story. Apparently, it turns out this story is false. It is propaganda. What happened was Luther was being forced into a marriage that he didn't want to enter into, so he ran away to become a monk, because a monk cannot get married, as a way to avoid this marriage. Therefore, he didn't enter into the priesthood in a legitimate fashion. That's why he abandoned it afterwards, because he didn't go in because of love of God. He went in because he wanted to spite his family.
See? I can't wait for those series. So, Lord willing, after this, maybe you can do that next once you've done your research. No pressure, but
this is going to take a while. This is going to take a while. It's a really... Sorry?
Yeah. He needs to be exposed.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, there's just everyone makes excuses. There's nothing he can say or do that isn't, well, God can draw straight lines with a crooked stick. It's like, well, what? So maybe Hitler was being used for a special purpose.
Oh, well, come on. Well, if you're a Calvinist, Boyd D. John, everything has been predestined for God's greater glory. So in Calvinism, Hitler was predestined to do the evil he did that God wanted him to do, and he was decreed to do for his greater glory. So you're sounding very Calvinistic right now.
Yeah, I know. See, the thing is, it's just you're like, this is exactly like Muhammad and the defense of Muhammad. That's a weak hadith. And no, it's not what he said. It's what he meant. Let me explain to you what he meant. I'm like, man, this is dawah. Why am I hearing it from Christians?
Same spirit. Luther and Muhammad, same spirit. May the Lord Jesus erase their names and memory from the face of the earth for the glory of Christ. So, guys, when he's done with the research, it's going to take time. I'll have him to come here and do a series. He needs to be exposed. I wish I had known this. I didn't know any of this. No one talked about Luther. All I knew about Luther was he was one of the reformers. That was it. But I didn't know much about him. But glory to God, he's being exposed. Glory to God.
Well, like I said, the more I see, the more disturbing it becomes. For instance, there's a couple of things. Like Luther wanted to ban philosophy. He disliked rationalism. He did not want the Bible to be rationally explored or to have faith interpreted with rationality, right? That it has to conform with reality, with rationality, with the rules of rationality. So he wanted faith alone, as in basically your feelings. Now, what is odd, he disliked philosophy and he wanted philosophy banned. Now, if you go into the Sharia, right, it is illegal for Muslims to study philosophy for the same reasons. This is Islam.
Yeah. The difference between aql, which is the intellect, philosophy, what they would call kalam, and naql. I'm sorry. Yeah, naql would be the revelation. Exactly.
Yeah. So okay. So back to our talk. So thanks for that, guys. I will discuss more of these things in the future. Look, it's upsetting a lot of people. Please understand, I am not setting out to be unkind, but I do want to be factual, right? We can debate about these things, but I am not looking to go out and hurt people. I am just saying, look, these are the facts. This is what exists. Okay, faith alone, all of these ideas, all of Luther's ideas precede him by 100, 200 and more years. They come from former heresies prior to his. And in fact, Luther's Gnostic tendencies, Luther seemed to lean heavily into Manichaeism.
Look, I don't mean it. Here's another Luther fangirl, this clown. Now, you see, this is why I have no respect for spiritual bastards like this clown. You just gave citations from Martin Luther's Table Talks. You just said you're carefully researching. This fangirl, this Lutherite.
It's rumors, I know.
This scum, he's no better than a Mohammedan. These are rumors. Well, you are of your father, the devil. You are a Lutherite, a worshiper of Luther. You're not a child of God. He just gave you the sources, you slandering son of the devil. You are scum. Maybe Luther was talking about you and he wanted to stuff you with Satan's bowel movements. You filth.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
So, understand? I mean, I've told people, people said, you're lying. This is a Catholic conspiracy. This is a Jesuit fraud. I'm like, so prove it. And then when I say, please give me the evidence, prove it, then I hear, Lloyd, you're dividing Christ's body. John 12, verse 1 says that the man who speaks evil like you is going to burn in the pit of hell and will be roasted without marshmallows. And Lloyd, this is your fate. And I'm like, look, man, I don't want to know what the Bible says. You said this is a Catholic conspiracy. It's a fraudulent document. Show me the proof. If it's false, show me. Lloyd, Jesus says you must only speak the truth, and the truth is found in the words of Martin Luther. And okay, you said it's a fake document. Prove it. Show me. Lloyd, Jesus said that you are going to burn in hell for speaking of ill. Okay, yeah, that's nice. Where's the proof that, please show me. This is the dawah. This is dawah. Like, please stop. Anyway, moving on. Okay. So, yeah. Okay. I want to go back to one slide. This is slide 8 of my previous stuff. The atheists of the French Revolution, the French philosophers, right? The French rationalist enlightenment thinkers that atheists revere today as the great champions of reason, the people who brought reason, who got rid of superstition, that's Christianity. They worshipped the goddess of reason, right? Isis, a pagan deity. So I want to add something to that, right? This is Madame Blavatsky. She was the one who founded Theosophy, right? The religion of Theosophy. A modern priestess of Isis. This is a book by the Russian Vsevolod Sergeyevich Solovyov, right? Translated, blah, blah, blah. It's on the life of Madame Helena Blavatsky, co-founder of the Theosophy movement in the United States. They revere all of these occult things, right? So what happens is the goddess of Isis, she also worships Isis. This is the irrational, right? This is an occultist. Now, why are these French revolutionary guys worshiping Isis? And I want you to notice this little symbol here. Look familiar, Sam?
Let me see. Nothing to do with Hitler or not?
Nothing to do. Nothing to do with that either. Okay. And it says there is no religion higher than truth. And she's got the Ankh here in the middle. This is the Egyptian Ankh. This is the reference to the Egyptian. I'm not sure exactly how this works, and I haven't had time to look into this symbol. Yes, I know what it is, right? Please don't think I don't. Okay, so moving on. Now I've got to run through a whole bunch of slides. So let me just get ahead to where we were before. But it's just fascinating, the connection there with Theosophy and the occult and the French revolutionaries. Okay. This is where we ended the last time, on Kropotkin, Prince Kropotkin. Yeah, the Hakenkreuz, exactly, the Hakenkreuz. In fact, the Hakenkreuz had another name prior to that. We will get into some of that as well, but the Hakenkreuz, I wonder actually if I have any reference to that is elsewhere. I will get into the Hakenkreuz, not to worry. What they call the swastika. Okay, moving on. So remember, he says, the Great French Revolution, remember, these people are sympathetic, and many scholars are sympathetic to the French Revolution, which is why they've just accidentally, sheer accident, forgot to mention the atrocities caused by the atheistic state, the first atheistic state, under the first atheistic religion in the name of atheism. It was the source and origin of all the present communist, anarchist, and socialist conceptions. So these atheists were also socialists, right? They were revolutionary socialists. Call it jihadi socialists, right? So Josh Walker, Josh, that was Luther's work. That was Luther's words. If you can prove me wrong, please do. So we're supposed to take only the nice things. Muhammad said that we must love our moms and dads. Okay, but all the other things Muhammad said, no, we must ignore that because you're taking it out of context. No, don't talk about that. Dude, you are a Muslim apologist. You're doing dawah right now. We can only look at the nice things, ignore the bad things. What if Martin Luther's nasty words about poop and eating poop and all of these, what if that abrogated his earlier writings? Okay, let's just say Martin Luther abrogated his earlier works in his Medinian period. All right?
Yeah. By the way, now notice, Josh, why you are a wicked tool of the devil, and I have no respect for you. You're a man worshiper, and you're filth. I'm going to use the very language of Luther against you. You're crap, and you're full of crap. The reason why, what the hell does bondage of the will have anything to do with the citations of Luther being a sick, demonized madman talking about poop and crap? See, this again shows that you're more dangerous than a Mohammedan. Why? Because at least a Mohammedan, we know they worship a false god. You claim to be a Trinitarian, worship the Trinity, which makes you dangerous. You filthy man worshiper, you Lutherite. You're a disgusting tool of the devil. And if you think Luther's arguments for the bondage of will are good, when I'm live next time, come use his arguments. I will destroy you from Scripture and bury you in Luther's crap that you call bondage of the will, because that's what he crapped out on the toilet, you filthy man worshiper. Shut your mouth, get out of here, because we're not talking about bondage of the will. We're talking about Luther's filthy, wicked, demonized statements. You son of the devil, you. Now, brother, I hope he's happy. Go ahead.
Luther had a very filthy mouth. I mean, honestly, he was an extremely filthy man.
Yeah. That's the Luther in me. I'm imitating him. So you can't condemn me for acting like Luther. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is an atheist, of course, who's telling us that the atheist movement, that was the French Revolution, the first atheist state, the first modern expression of enlightened, rational atheism, was entirely socialist and entirely genocidal. Let's continue. So on to the next slide. Sorry that took so long, half an hour of back and forth here. But also, here's another thing, a statement. There was a guy that was making comments about everything was done by the Jews. That is false. Okay. I mean, if you hit your toe against a rock while walking down the street, you would obviously blame the Jews because that is so convenient. This on my channel, I will ban you outright. No questions, no discussion. I'm not interested in having a discussion on that point. Right. So, okay. By the way, Luther also hated Jews. Luther wanted them, let's just say, he wanted them treated very, very harshly. And he was the favorite theologian of a man called that guy. Okay. Edmund Burke on atheistical fanaticism. Okay. So Edmund Burke is the founder of what we would call modern conservatism, right? We cannot be ignorant of the spirit of atheistical fanaticism, inspired by a multitude of writings, dispersed with incredible assiduity and expense. These people were very serious about spreading their propaganda, and by sermons delivered in all the streets and places of public resort in Paris. These atheistical fathers have a bigotry of their own, and they learn to talk against monks with the spirit of a monk. But in some things, they are men of the world. The resources of intrigue are called in to supply the defects of their argument and wit. So in other words, they're utilizing sophistry and propaganda. They're using dawa to supply the defects of argument and wit that they possess. To this system of literary monopoly was joined an unremitting industry to blacken and discredit in every way and by every means all those who did not hold to their faction. To those who have observed the spirit of their conduct, it has long been clear that nothing was wanted but the power of carrying intolerance of the tongue and of the pen into a persecution which would strike at property, liberty, and life. In other words, he's describing the modern Democrat Party.
That's what I was about to say. You beat me to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same agenda. The same agenda. They're implementing this to a T even now. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. Now, this is Percy Bysshe Shelley. He was an atheist. He was a wannabe inbreeder. He wanted to shag his cousin. It sounds, man, there's a religion where someone was shagging cousins. Do you know? Oh, Sam, help me out. I can never remember. So, having hoped to marry his cousin, Harriet Grove, Shelley had been rejected on account, he believed, of his religious unbelief, of his atheism. I burn with impatience for the moment of Christianity's dissolution. It has injured me. I swear in the altar of perjured love to revenge myself on the hated cause. I will stab the wretch in secret. He will destroy Christianity. He will stab it in secret. I swear, and as I break my oath, may eternity blast me. Here I swear I will never forgive Christianity because he couldn't shtup his cousin. Oh, how I wish I were the Antichrist, that it were mine to crush the demon, to hurl him to his native hell, never to rise again. Because you see, Sam, he doesn't believe in Christianity or demons or hell. That's why he wants to destroy Christianity. And he's talking in satanic language because he's an atheist, because he's rational. And he wants to bang his cousin because that's the rational thing we all do. So he returns to Oxford, okay, haranguing his father in a letter, and reasonable people did not require religious belief to behave morally, he said. Well, it's Christian morality that says you don't sleep with your cousin. So therefore, he felt that, well, he was being moral and Christianity was holding him back from following that thing. Christianity was unreasonable And irreligious periods in world history were the most peaceful, he said. Right? And religion fetters a reasoning mind with the very bonds which restrain the unthinking one from mischief. So religion is the thing that basically makes you bad. So this was common thinking, yes, Sam?
So that's the reason he rejected Christianity, more so because he was a sexual pervert deviant, not because of anything rational. And Christianity was standing in the way of him.
No, he's rational, Sam. He's an atheist. Atheist. When you become an atheist, your IQ goes up 30 points. Did you know that?
Just like Martin Luther. All right, you got it.
Sorry to break it to you, Sam, but if you want that extra 30 points, Sam,
I'd rather be dumb, but go ahead.
Good choice. The Jacobins, a society without God. Now, they've got here, okay? The first attempt to create a society consciously without God was by the French Jacobins with their atheist cult of reason, right? And of course, in the autumn of 1792, the club changed its name to the Society of Friends of Liberty and Equality, which are both socialist aims. The Jacobins were members of a democratic club. They are destroying our democracy. Yeah, Democrats. First known as the Society of Friends of the Constitution, founded in 1789. They desired to purify society. They were Puritans. To implement their moral vision on earth, they wanted to destroy Christianity. That's why the atheist French Revolution had to murder the Christians, because they wanted to purify the earth to implement their moral vision. In Western France alone, they killed about 250,000 people. Look, the figures are all over the place. There may be up to 500,000 people that they murdered who had attempted to adhere to Christianity rather than be atheist. They preferred centralized power of the state, hostile to any idea of the weakening or dismemberment of the state. In other words, socialism. All power to the state. Right? We've already seen Operation Parasite, Sade, Robespierre, and the French. Actually, hold on. Let me just go there, just in case that's something interesting. Let me just check that I don't have anything fascinating here. Okay. Operation Parasite. The Marquis de Sade. The Marquis de Sade is the atheist from whom we get the term sadism. Sadist comes from the atheist Marquis de Sade, who was part of the French Revolution. They speak here of Jean Lacroix has convincingly argued the Republic rests on the death of the Father. The Father here being the Church, being old traditions, and of course being God. Fraternity and equality can apparently only be realized through parricide, through murdering the Father, killing the foundations of the old state. Okay, I'm just going to go through a couple of things. It is even possible that Louis XVI was a Freemason. Beyond a doubt, he was a devoted reader of the Encyclopédie, which I spoke of in the opening. A huge vacuum of belief came into existence, which was quickly filled by radical left-wing ideology. So once they destroyed the church and the foundations of the state, they could then introduce their vision. And then the Marquis de Sade, he's the guy that where the word sadism comes from. He was a rabid left-wing materialist atheist. So the word sadism, thanks atheists, we appreciate that one of yours gave us that word. Okay? And Sade, along with the masochistic neurotic Rousseau, Rousseau committed his children to orphanages. So now Rousseau is supposed to be one of the great thinkers. Now Rousseau had 5 children with a woman. He never met those children because the moment they were born, he sent them straight to orphanages because they would get in the way of his lifestyle. Right? But he's a great thinker. He's a good man. Sorry, son?
That's what the bastard did. He had 5 kids and sent them to orphanages.
Yeah, when they were born, yeah.
What a filthy bastard. Okay. He's under God's wrath.
So the atrocities of the French Revolution were committed under the slogan of liberty, fraternity, and equality. Don't forget, it was actually liberty, fraternity, equality, or death, right? So of those guillotined, over 30% were peasants, right? So they were killing peasants as well, okay? And they speak here of one huge sadistic sex orgy, okay? So it really did become a sadistic sex orgy, right? And then they speak here of Dostoevsky's dictum, if there is no God, then everything is permitted. And the final one, the decapitated corpses of men and women were undressed and then bound together in obscene poses. Now, you've seen this in movies where the psychopath killer will take people and put them in poses like in paintings and stuff like that. This is what the French revolutionaries did. Okay, men and women were tied together naked, thrown alive into the river, and when the mob couldn't find enough men and women, they organized the tying of the knot in homosexual fashion. Okay, so let me see if there's anything else. The Republicans had planned nothing less than the complete extermination of the population of the Vendée, right? Saint Just had declared that not only the traitors, but also the indifferent would have to be exterminated. In other words, people who wouldn't join the Republic, right? Priests were guilty because they placed the future in question by their very existence. Robespierre wanted a quick, strict, and unflinching justice as a result of virtue and the consistency of democratic principles. So virtue and democracy required the murder of all nuns, all priests, and any Christians who wouldn't convert to atheism. So yeah, I'll leave this at that for the moment. There were roast women and children in baking ovens. To get maximum sadistic pleasure from this practice, the victims were placed in cold ovens, which were then heated. Right? So you understand, the men of the Vendée fought in battle, okay? The atonement had to be made by their women and children, even the smallest. They murdered the children of the soldiers who fought against them, right? So they would slice open pregnant women to chop their unborn children into pieces and let the mothers bleed to death. Pregnant women were crushed to death in wine and fruit presses. So yeah, I'll leave this at that. That's enough for now, but you get the point. This was...
By the way,
sorry?
What I want to say is, isn't it ironic that they rip open the belly of pregnant women, which is exactly what the Old Testament says the pagan nations would do, like the Babylonians. You'll find in scripture where the Babylonians are set to rip open pregnant women and other pagan nations. And this is atheism in the modern context, supposedly rational, mimicking the vile, wicked, pagan atrocities of the ancient Near Eastern kingdoms. Nothing new under the sun.
But remember, in the previous episode, I discussed more of these atrocities, right, in detail. And then I also discussed how they had gone into the history of the pagan Greeks and Romans to imitate them. They were taking their lessons from those sources. Their atheism was traced on the atheism of the Greeks and Romans and the religion of the Greeks and Romans. So this is from Tom Holland. Many Christians died as a witness or a martyr in Greek. Martyrs were made to run the gauntlet of whips, savaged by wild beasts, roasted in iron chairs, so that they were suffocated by the reek of their own flesh as it cooked. See the parallel? In the Roman view, a god best displayed his power by protecting those who worshipped him, not by demanding their deaths. In my kingdom is not of this world. Remember, God didn't call for these people to murder others. He said, look, they persecuted me, they hated me, they will hate and persecute you. Right? These people went willingly to their deaths. Romans knew how to bind themselves, called religare in Latin, to the gods. They offered the gods sacrifice and respect, and the gods were committed then to bind themselves to the Roman people and grant them glory. This religio, as the Romans termed it, was threatened by the superstition of the Christians. It was our aim, as one emperor put it, to set everything right, to ensure that the Christians too, who had abandoned the way of life of their ancestors, be returned to sanity. This is exactly what the French revolutionary atheists were saying. The Christians are insane. We have to murder the lot of them to bring them back to sanity. Yeah.
By the way, Brother Lloyd, if people don't know who this author is, Tom Holland wrote another book that rocked the Muslim community. They were upset. This man, Tom Holland, he wrote a book showing that there may be some serious questions whether Muhammad existed, and if he did, he's not the Muhammad of later tradition. They even did a documentary revolved around his book, Tom Holland, and he wrote a book, and he's not a Christian. People don't know. He's not a Christian himself.
He speaks very well of Christianity, though. And
exactly.
as the years go by, his views of Christianity has just gotten... Yes. And he goes to church now, even though his wife's now a Catholic, I believe, and he goes to church. He's still an atheist, he says, but he speaks very highly.
So you notice, Tom Holland, when he checked the facts of history, saw that the narrative about Muhammad was all fabrications, fraud, and it's questionable whether that Muhammad existed. He wrote a book on it. There's a documentary where he's featured in it, questioning Islam. But when he examined history, he has nothing but praise for the church. And during this time, there wasn't Protestantism. It would have been the Catholic Church in the West. As an atheist, this is who he's quoting. Go ahead, brother.
Right. Dr. Michael Burley has also written on the French Revolution, and he says the Jacobin effort to do away with Christianity and build a society based on rational thought ended in extreme violence. The Jacobins were not unique. Societies which have rejected God have not escaped mankind's violent nature. If you subtract God and the notion of an afterlife, then there's a risk in the political utopianism so deadly in the 20th century that you will attempt to create heaven on earth, a quick fix in the here and now, the arrogant illusion that you can remake man and woman into some sort of new being. Don't forget, this was the aim of the Nazis, the aim of the Soviets, Nietzsche. All of these people were going to recreate the new socialist man, the new atheist man, the new whatever man. And that invariably results in hell for ordinary people. He's a historian at Hoover Institution, Stanford. Now, what is interesting is that Rousseau's philosophy, and we'll mention him briefly, Rousseau claimed that man is inherently good, and it's society, because he didn't get enough hugs or toys, or because he didn't live on a nice street, that makes man bad. You see, it's society's fault. If you go poop on the street, it's your fault. It's not his fault. It's not decision making. And this was the foundation of Rousseau's philosophy, which we're seeing. Rousseau was a Democrat. Sam?
So, yeah, people are going to say, dude, this guy's really pushing, let's become Republican. No, we're not here. We're not pushing any political agenda. But one thing I can say, any party that supports the murder of unborn children, abortion, you are to oppose it. Any party that condemns the life of the unborn, because Jesus says life begins at conception, you have no right voting for them. So he's not trying to shove Trump down your throat, sir. Okay, people? He doesn't even live in America. So he's not saying vote for Trump. But go ahead, brother. We have to make that, because Facebook, YouTube censors are watching us.
Yeah, well, just to remind people of the Marquis de Sade and induced abortion. So remember, induced abortion is the product of an atheist mind, of an atheist, Marquis de Sade. He is the author of the word, remember the word sadism comes from him. And, right, don't forget, so this is all about, I covered this in the previous episode. All right, remember, he held all life as an atheist, a rational atheist, all life was cheap. He spent his life attacking God and the Christian church. And also he attacked morality, family ties, and social structures, and he advocated sodomy, incest, lust, and cruelty for its own sake. This is from the National Library of Medicine, just so by the way, right? And the realistic view, according to de Sade, this atheist, was that since murder is such a trivial matter, because look, you're just matter, right? You don't matter because you're matter. Destruction of an infant which has not achieved the age of reason, so he's talking here about children, born already, is of small consequence. Understand, this is what atheism, this is the logical outcome of atheism, that life is meaningless.
Wow, man, that's disgusting.
All right, just so you know that, okay, let's continue. So this is Thomas Sowell, right? The whole political vision of the left, including socialism, has failed by every empirical test in all countries around the world. But this has only led leftist intellectuals, atheists, to evade and denigrate empirical evidence. When the world fails to conform to their vision, then it seems obvious to the ideologues that it is the world that is wrong and not their vision that is uninformed or realistic. Now, let's have a look at this guy, Voltaire. Whatever you do, crush the loathsome thing and love those who love you. This is Voltaire on Christianity. The loathsome thing is the Roman Catholic Church. Jesus said, if you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do that. Luke 6, 32 to 34. Sam, isn't this somewhat of an Islamic creed? Love those who love you and hate those who hate you.
That's actually echoing chapter 3, verse 31, 32 of the Quran, where Allah will love you if you love Muhammad. If you obey Muhammad, Allah will love you. But if you disobey Muhammad, Allah will not love you. Allah hates you. And isn't it ironic, guys, again, the target, the scapegoat for all of this? Are you paying attention? The scapegoat for all of this is the Catholic Church. They're always attacking the Catholic Church, demonizing the Catholic Church, vilifying the Catholic Church. But go ahead, brother.
Yeah, so he basically preached to love those who love you. Did he get this from Islam? But this is not the message of Jesus. Love those who love you only, right? So Voltaire's anti-Christian polemic, and guess where I found this? on the Marxist Internet Archive on Marxists.org. Now, I thought he was a rational, enlightened philosopher. Why is he being revered by Marxists?
Nothing to do with socialism, Marxism, nothing to do with sadism, nothing to do with Islam, or the guy with that mustache. Looks like Charlie Chaplin.
Nothing to do. Moving. So, no, the French, this renowned people, will not fall for fables, Christianity. They no longer want to solicit of Rome this vain pardons it sells. The masks have been torn from the charlatans. Enough have been damned because of an apple. I've always esteemed the man Jesus. So as for Jesus, just between us, I've always been a bit jealous. I've always esteemed the man for his touching and sublime morality. He must be quoted with praise. His successors have poorly imitated him. In his name they've persecuted. In his name at the two ends of the earth, his cross in hand. These cruel men for 13 centuries have borne flames and wars. Placing the people under their authority means betraying them, means being a false friend. And every evil sermon, okay, so Christians speak only evil. And instead of flattering superstition, instead of flattering these Christians and their superstitions, be eloquent and crush Christianity, crush the church. He called for crushing the loathsome thing, the Roman Catholic Church. So, and this is Voltaire to La Harpe on Marxist.org, yes?
He said, crush the Roman Catholic Church again?
Effectively, yes, specifically, yeah. Yeah, so this was the way that he rolled. Let me just fix that. Okay, right, so I'll continue there. Sorry about that, I just fixed that slide. Right, so understand that was his view. Now remember, these claims are ones that atheists repeat today. Right, these are claims that even Muslims repeat today. Now, let's have a look at Mikhail Bakunin, okay? Not nuts. I mean, just look at that face. Yeah, correct. This is the way the history comes from. We're going to be looking into all of that. So in God and the State, okay? So this document called Old Gods in New Clothes, the French Revolution, Cults, and the Rebirth of the Golden Age, right? So actually, you know what? I'll bring that up. Let me just click on that, open this, and I will get to that in a minute. Right. Mikhail Bakunin says, on behalf of human liberty, dignity, and prosperity, we believe it is our duty to recover from heaven the goods which heaven has stolen and return them to earth. You see, because this is all a human function, right? If God is, then man is a slave. If God exists, then man is a slave. Now man can and must be free. Then God does not exist. So God does not exist because he doesn't want God to exist, because he doesn't believe that man can be free if God exists. Because you see, man is not able to indulge his lusts freely without guilt. Man cannot do what he wants. And remember, what is the prime creed of Satanism? Do what thou wilt is the whole of the law. Do what you want. Anytime, do what you want. Follow your will, right? Not the will of God, not a sense of morality. Do what you will. So his view as a socialist is perfectly in line with Satanism. A jealous lover of human liberty and deeming it the absolute condition of all that we admire and respect in humanity, I reverse the phrase of Voltaire and I say that if God really existed, it would be necessary to abolish him. Right? He goes on, Jehovah of all gods is certainly the most jealous, the most vain, the most ferocious, the most unjust, the most bloodthirsty, the most despotic, and the most hostile to human dignity and liberty. Now I've got to ask, Richard Dawkins, is that you speaking? Because, Sam, doesn't Richard Dawkins say exactly the same thing, almost verbatim?
Yes.
Is Richard Dawkins a socialist? A rabid socialist?
He is a Hindu Buddhist. What's wrong with you? But you know what's shocking? Did you see what he said, guys? If God really existed, he would even try to abolish him. Wow. This is, if I can just comment on that. This is, again, shows how naive some Christians are. They assume that people, if they're given enough evidence to show God exists, that they will submit to God. Brethren, don't be naive. Don't be foolish. Don't be stupid. Be wise as snakes, harmless as doves. These people, in their heart of hearts, instinctively realize there is God, and they hate him because look at all the time they spend and attacking and discrediting a being they claim doesn't exist. So here you see their heart. It's so corrupt. They're so given into sin, so demonized, that if God shows up, they would try to abolish God, just like they did to Jesus, who's God in the flesh. He showed up and they still nailed him to the cross. Don't be naive.
Yeah. So Emphatic says, and to think these bosses, the ones we read in Philosophy 101, as the ones who brought us happiness. Yes, they want to push these people as somehow gods among men, right? All religions with their gods, their demigods. Now, the thing is, Richard Dawkins effectively says the very same thing as he does here. So Richard Dawkins is quoting this anarchist socialist, crazy man. All religions with their gods, their demigods, and their prophets, their messiahs, and their saints were created by the credulous fancy of men who had not attained the full development and full possession of their faculties. In other words, you're retarded if you believe in, God. But what's interesting is that I have asked atheists before. I've said, look, you call yourself a scientific atheist. So did Marx, Lenin, Stalin, Engels, and all these other guys. You say you follow scientific atheism, which is the name given to the Soviet atheism. You say that you criticize God using these arguments. These are literally verbatim, word for word, what Stalin, Lenin, even Hitler, Mao, Pol Pot, they all said the same things. So you are repeating verbatim. You call yourself by the same title. You say the very same things. How are you different? I'm still waiting to get answers from people on that, but yeah. Okay. Liberty University, Old Gods in New Clothes, the French Revolutionary cults and the rebirth of the Golden Age. Just so, by the way, mysticism in the occult in the Ancien Regime, France. Esotericism in the revolutionary cults. Understand, this is a university thesis. There's some great papers out there. If you go look for them, you'll find some amazing information. Officially advertised as a celebration of the unveiling of the new constitution of the French Republic, this festival featured bizarre iconography. The statue was of a bare-breasted Egyptian nature goddess, Isis, the head goddess of the ancient Egyptian pantheon. The fete comprised an interesting melange of images, considering this was no procession belonging to a Greco-Roman mystery religion, but a new secular religion of an enlightened republic. Radical political leaders copied and reshaped ancient concepts, symbols, and religious rituals for the sake of creating a new state religion designed to replace Catholicism in France. See? So this was all their new religious idea. Sorry?
I apologize. I can't talk over you, but
go
I want
on,
to
please go on. Yeah.
You guys hear it again? From the Reformation, notice the connection. And Gunky, I hope you're here because I'm going to say something to you, Gunky. From the time of the Reformation up until now, even with the French Revolution and this flooding of rationalism, atheism, do you see it's a considered effort of destroying the Catholic Church in the West? Are you seeing this connection from Luther until the modern rationalist atheists? They all have this as an agenda. We need to destroy the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church has to be destroyed. And it started from the time of the Reformers. So here's a connection between the Reformers and modern rationalists, atheists. Their goal, wipe out the Catholic Church. And I thought the Catholic Church is evil. I just want to make one comment to Gunky. Gunky, the reason why I'm being harsh and cruel to Protestants is to give them a taste of their own medicine. If you don't know me, you don't know my history, this is why you'll be confused. All my life as a Protestant, I was told to hate and bash the Catholic Church and any church that was like it, like the Orthodox. So I see the vitriol, the venom, the hatred of Protestants towards the Catholic Church. Pope is the Antichrist. The Catholic Church is the Antichrist system. It's a beastly system. So what I'm doing is, what did the Lord say? Eye for an eye. The same measure you use will be used against you. Now that God has broken me and showed me I was wrong, and I've asked for forgiveness, I'm now doing to Protestants what they do to Catholics to show them how it feels when you demonize a group and you deceive and brainwash people like me into thinking this group is of the devil. So don't complain when you get a taste of your own medicine. So calm down, buddy. I didn't say you're not a Christian just because you're a Pentecostal, but go ahead, brother.
All right. In fact, someone told me that that if a Protestant goes to a Catholic church, he is actually committing sacrilege according to the Catholic Church. So I actually went to the Catechism of the Catholic Church, and the Catechism, I can't remember offhand, but it states that Protestants who were born into Protestantism and have been baptized and serve God and follow this, do certain whatever, they are fellow Christian brothers, and they are welcome as participants in holy practice, right? So the Catholic, so I actually quoted him the full catechism, which actually said exactly the opposite of what he said to me, and then the guy deleted the whole thread, right? I mean, this is a guy whose name is like Christ is above all, and people like Jesus will save, and Jesus is my only hope. Like people just they either look, man, you're either wrong or you're lying. Please pick one, but let me know. Okay, so what they had is radical political leaders copied and reshaped ancient concepts, symbols, and religious rituals for the sake of a new state religion. All right, and I've mentioned other sources that said exactly the same thing. Robespierre repackaged pre-Christian religious traditions as a new rational and natural religious system. Right? So understand, rationalized superstition would rear its ugly head again during the first half of the 20th century in the Third Reich, highlighting the dangerous power of secularized state religion. The cultural historiography of Nazism has begun to explore the unholy brew of occultism, mysticism, ancient pagan pre-Christian traditions, mythohistory, and scientism in recent years. Previously, such topics as the influence of popular occultism in National Socialism was conspiracy theory. Right now, it's accepted as fact. These guys were deep into the occult. The problem is, but how de-Christianization, the cult of reason, and the cult of the supreme being have not captured the imagination of historians remains a mystery. As historians of Nazi Germany continue to explore the bizarre nature of Nazi religious culture, 18th century historians continue to ignore the French Revolution's state cults. Why? Because they support them. They are sympathetic to them. I will close this. Enough of that. Hopefully that gets my point across, right? Let me continue. So, Mikhail Bakunin, atheist. Let's see what this atheist believed. Human light, the mystical religion of Mikhail Bakunin. For behind us is our animality, our animal nature, and before us is our humanity. Human light, the only thing that can warm and enlighten. Love and light, Sam. Love and light. Namaste. Love and light. Have you heard that before from people, Sam? Love and light?
Brother, I was raised in an Indo-Pakistani community. They would all say namaste, namaste, namaste. Why like this? Reply me, man.
Yeah, really good. So, okay. So love and light is the only thing that can emancipate us, that can warm and enlighten us, give us dignity, freedom, and happiness, and realize fraternity among us. Okay. The idea of an avowed atheist, materialist, possessing his own religious beliefs seems contradictory. These people contradict themselves constantly. As did Luther. Actually, if you go through his writings, the man was all over the place. Today he was left, tomorrow he was right. It is easy to find Bakunin clearly making atheistic and anti-religious assertions. He had to argue for the removal of a supernatural God, the church and the state, which he believes stood in the way of human freedom. Bakunin evoked a materialist worldview. Oh, I thought atheists don't have a worldview. I thought ideas don't have consequences. Ideas just exist in a vacuum. Consistent belief in a mystical religion of freedom, of freedom for humanity, which developed syncretically from his early Christian beliefs. All of these atheists eventually develop a religion derived from Christianity, but devoid of its divine aspects. And then they mix it with pagan ideas, classical Roman and Greek ideas. That's why I read you this section here from this article. Understand what's going on? They want to replace Christianity with their own religion, with what they call scientific Christianity. All right, so let me see. And that's it. Okay, so Voltaire. So what did Voltaire believe? Right? Am I missing anything good in the comments? Okay.
All you're getting from comments is, why wasn't I taught this in seminary? Not seminary, I'm sorry, college, university, or high school? And why did I waste so much money in college when I can have learned this here for free? And why did they teach me the writings of some of these men and portray them as being great thinkers who were influential, but they hid their real agenda? Why wasn't this taught? So people are shocked and angry that the school system depicted these men as some great thinkers who were positive influences, but hid their really satanic agenda.
Yeah. Dude, I've been asking myself the very same question. Right, so let's look at this by Peter Gay, The Rise of Modern Paganism. And he's going to be talking about atheism, oddly enough, in the French Revolution. And he called it the rise of modern paganism. So the founding of atheism was called the rise of modern paganism, the enlightenment and interpretation. Everyone knows the anecdote about Voltaire entertaining fellow philosophers at Ferney. As they frankly talk about atheism, he silences them and sends the servants out of the room and then justifies his precaution. Do you want your throats cut tonight? He says. It's a dubious story, he says, but the feeling is authentic enough. Well, there's another source on that, but repeatedly, Voltaire called for a social religion that would sustain the social order by holding out the warning of a God who watched the world, punished sinners, and rewarded the good. This was certainly not the God in whom Voltaire himself believed, but it was also not the God of Christianity. The social religion Voltaire called for was a relatively rational religion that reduced nonsense, reduced observances, religious observances like Mass, manipulation, and priestly power to a minimum, called deism for the mob. Okay, deism for the mob. Now, of course, I need to go here to a source. Okay, this is a guy called Kushairi. Kushairi is a very famous Islamic scholar. Now, right, he determined that there were 4 levels of meaning in the Quran. First is the ibara, the lowest level of meaning, the literal level of meaning in the Quran, which is the meaning of the text meant for the mass of the believers. In one text, they call it Islam for the masses. See? Then you have a second level, the ishara, only available to the spiritual elite and lying beyond the obvious verbal meaning. You see, this is now already Gnostic because you have levels of knowledge. You have this pyramid of knowledge with the elites at the top. So now already this atheist view, you've got religion for the lower levels and then unreligion or occult belief for the higher levels. This is a very Islamic belief. It is a Gnostic belief. So were these people atheists or were they Gnostics? The simpler the laws, the more the magistrates are respected, and the simpler the religion, the more its ministers will be revered. Religion can be simple. When enlightened people will announce a single God, a rewarder, a punisher, no one will laugh and everyone will obey. Sam, when enlightened people announce there is only one God who rewards and punishes and that everyone will obey, does that sound vaguely familiar, Sam?
Has nothing to do with Muhammad. Has nothing to do with
Sharia. I was getting worried for a second.
Nothing to do with it. Nothing. You're delusional, sir. You're like Martin Luther, too much on the toilet. Come on now.
Just one God. He rewards and he punishes, Sam. And you must obey.
Nothing to do with Islam, dude. Say this again. When you read too much Luther, your brain goes to pot. Pun intended.
Sorry. Yeah. So I wonder where you got that idea. I just don't know. It's a secret. And this is called, that was from Peter Gay, The Enlightenment, right? Okay, so deism, a fake proto-atheist religion. So Voltaire's social religion is not deism. Deism holds that reason can establish the existence of a God, but a God distinct from the world, separate from the world, far from the world. A little bit like Allah, to be honest, a first cause and creator who instituted the changeless universal laws of nature, but does not intervene in the world. The metaphor was common that God was an absentee landlord. What is deism for the mob? So he accepted a form of deism. Now, lots of people say he was a deist, right? Other sources that I'm looking at show that he was an atheist. But fine, it's like everyone wants to excuse him and say, no, he wasn't an atheist. He wasn't a bad guy. He wasn't that horrible psychopath. So his own words say something else. The guy's all over the place too. It was beyond the bulk of the population to follow such a refined view of the deity. So you see that the stupid people, that's you, the masses, that's you. You know, you're not smart enough to understand the religion of Voltaire, who had a great mind, and he was a great philosopher, you know. You just don't have that mentality. He's got 30 points more than you because he's a true atheist. Preferably, everyone would be a deist, but as a deist himself, Voltaire thought that the most that could be hoped for was belief in a God who watched the world, punished sinners, and rewarded the good. This was a deist solution to people who should believe, but who lacked the sophistication, you see, to accept deism. He said it should be caught because it would not be accepted, but a social religion purged of superstition, made very simple, so the stupid people, that's you, could understand it, and that this is the closest that the bulk of the population could get to deism, Such a social religion was rationally calculated by Voltaire to keep the masses morally in line, preserving social order. So atheists have long realized that without some kind of social instrument, a religion, effectively, society would fall into anarchy and chaos. So they've repurposed religion. They're not looking to remove religion entirely. They want to repurpose it for their purpose. By the way, this is from the Sharia, from Islam. All three of these are of the perfection of faith, ihsan, but the perfection required for the validity of worship is only the first. Just follow these rules to be a basic Muslim. While perfection in the latter senses is the mark of the elect and not possible for many. You see, don't forget, there's deism for the mob, and then there's the smart people who have the true religion, the true Islam. Perfection in the latter senses is the mark of the elect, the imams, the scholars, the great scholars, and it's not possible for the mob. You see the parallel with Islam here, Sam? Sorry.
Nothing to do with Islam. How many times I have to repeat that, sir? My goodness, this guy don't get it.
Yeah.
They have no connection.
None. Yeah. I mean, there was no Muslims chopping heads off in France in the 1700s, right? They weren't in. So what did Voltaire believe? Pragmatically, teach the masses the simplest religion they can accept, short of deism, right? Well, various religious views were attributed to him, including atheism, right? Gay ascribes to Voltaire a suspicion of atheism and concludes that on balance, the evidence suggests deism as the most accurate characterization of his beliefs. Maybe. Voltaire's full quote was, now remember, if God did not exist, we would have to invent him, right? Now, we've all heard this. If God did not exist, we would have to invent him. Read the full quote, please, Sam.
If God did not exist, we'd have to invent him. But all of nature screams he exists. Wow. So they don't quote. He actually said that. They don't quote. He actually admits. Voltaire admits nature proves God exists, just like the Bible says.
Why do you think for centuries they've forgotten to add those last few words?
Wow. Guys, this is a confirmation that your Bible is supernatural. What do I mean? Read Romans 1:18-25. Paul says that those who are atheists, who suppress the truth, know God exists because they can see it from creation, his divine nature and power, that this being is powerful, wise to create this complex creation. So they know he exists, but they suppress it out of their hatred. Voltaire just confirmed the words of Romans chapter 1.
Atheist takia. Yes. So this is Voltaire. There's more than one source of this, right? This is one that I located. This is Voltaire's letters, page 232, Ferney, November 28, 1770, on the soul and God, page 233. And he says here, now here he's talking slag about atheism, oddly enough, and he's talking about a particular atheist. We'll get into that another time. And he says, what is most repellent in the system of nature after the recipe to make eels from flour is the audacity with which it decides that there is no God, without even having tried to prove the impossibility. He says it's impossible to prove there's no God. There is some eloquence in the book, but much more rant and no sort of proof. This is the very first public atheist book. It is a pernicious work, but all nature cries aloud that he does exist. There is a supreme intelligence, an immense power, an admirable order, and everything teaches us our own dependence on it. And yet, he rejected it.
Wow, he admitted this, huh?
Yep.
This is actually what Voltaire realized. Again, guys, rejoice. The God of the Bible is real. The Bible is supernatural, because Paul, Romans 1:18-25, I want to remind you, said that these who hate God and denies existence do so not because of lack of evidence. Here, from the horse's mouth, Voltaire said, nature screams God exists. There is no proof he doesn't exist, but they hate that God. They know he exists, but they want to have nothing to do with him, proving how miraculous the Bible is. Glory to Jesus Christ. Wow.
Someone asked in the comments if I'm a Christian. I'm an agnostic, dyslexic, insomniac. I lie awake at night wondering if there really is a dog. Sorry, that was a joke. Just so you know that. Moving on. Yeah. So atheism means to be against God. We can conclude that Voltaire was against God. You see? This is why atheists want to confuse what does the word atheism mean. They don't even know what a freaking woman is. I'm not surprised they don't know what the word atheism means. So this is Merriam-Webster. Écraser l'infâme, French quotation from Voltaire, crush the loathsome thing, referring to the Roman Catholic Church.
You see that again, guys? Can you just show that slide one more time? Merriam-Webster's dictionary, which is not a Catholic source, says that this phrase was
No, this is a Jesuit conspiracy, Sam.
Yeah, Illuminati and Bilderbergers, all that stuff. Do you see it says this phrase was coined specifically to destroy and crush the Roman Catholic Church? So there you go, sir.
Yeah, there's other sources on this, but this was an easy one. Écraser l'infâme, crush the loathsome thing. The battle cry of Voltaire was a fiery expression of his love of men, of his love of liberty, of enlightenment, and of progress. Let us murder all the Christians in France because I love enlightenment, I love men, because his cry led to hundreds of thousands of deaths of Christians, by the way. The thing in question is superstition, they say. Superstition. Okay, well, Christian superstition, Roman Catholic superstition, meaning Christianity. Voltaire was against religion, specifically the Catholic Church. His writings are also anti-Jewish. Also, he hates some black people. Let's be honest. The language above is whitewashing and propaganda. We will learn exactly how vicious, violent, and bloody the implementation of this love of man, liberty, and enlightenment progress was, as we've seen in the French Revolution. His thoughts contributed to the French Revolution. It was violent in the extreme. So, I see J-Dubs is trying to be stupid now.
J-Dubs, you need to do more indulgences than your whore mother did, because after she spent 50 years being a whore in Iran, doing muta with every Shia and his son, she could not do enough indulgences in order for her to receive remission of sin. So you better start doing a lot of indulgences, because you're going to end up where that whore ended up, under the feet of Christ, under his wrath. So you better start practicing your indulgences, buddy, because your mother was not able to do enough, and you're the result of it. She gave birth to a dog like you. So now get out of here before I stuff Martin Luther's shat in your mouth and up your arse. So yeah, you say I'm not politically correct. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah. So Voltaire, a deist. Now, okay, here, I just should let you know. Sometimes I'm just quoting what I'm coming across. I'm just telling you what's being said in the text or whatever, right? Doesn't mean I necessarily believe every word on every page, right? So he's commonly claimed to be a deist, right? But he saw godlessness as weakening the sacred bonds of society. So atheism, he realized you need religion, even if it's fake religion, and he created a fake religion for that reason. If God did not exist, it would be necessary to invent him. Now notice they leave off the other words. This is such a constant trick. Question everything. Go look at the facts, right? Now, here's the thing. What kind of God did these atheist and deist socialists invent? And why would they want to invent a God? Well, for social control, of course. Now, Voltaire does say there is no God, but don't tell that to my servant, lest he murder me at night. Okay? So let's check the man's CV.
So he
was a serial... Yeah, sorry?
Sorry to cut you off. So he knew that God was a moral constraint. So don't tell my servant there's no God, because if there's no God, then there is no moral absolute. So then killing me means nothing. Wow. All right.
So he created a religion for selfish purposes to keep social order so he was a serial womanizer. He had an affair with a married woman, for instance, not the only one, okay, but Emily de Châtelet as an example. He was having sex with his sister's daughter, with his niece. So he was shagging his sister's niece. Her name was Marie-Louise Mignon. And he was an avowed racist. So, Sam, do you know of many people who shag their brother's or sister's daughter? What kind of person would do that, Sam?
Sir, remember, this is being completely rational. You're irrational. The rational thing to do is shaggy with family members. And I don't see any precedence in that in the Sharia. Yeah, right. Wink, wink. You'll be interested. Maybe we'll do a session on that. Well, let's anyway on Islam.
Yeah, but see, so incest man here wants to crush Christianity because why? He doesn't want there to be repercussions for shagging his niece, his his sister's kid. I wonder what his sister thought of it. Oh, maybe she didn't say anything because she didn't want to get her head chopped off. So, Voltaire, inbreeder, he says here, prejudices are what fools use for reason, but he hated black people. Some of the stuff he said about black people is not so nice, okay? Not so nice. French atheist Voltaire once said, hold on, that quote calls him a French atheist. You see, this goes all over the place. In 20 years, Christianity shall be no more. My single hand shall destroy the edifice it took 12 apostles to build. Yeah, Voltaire's going to destroy Christianity in 20 years. He wrote that in 50 years, no one will remember Christianity. But in the same year that he wrote those words, the British Museum paid the Russian government $500,000 for a Bible manuscript, while Voltaire's books were selling in the London bookstores for just 8 cents. So yeah, that's so much for Voltaire and his predictions. Prophet Voltaire, exactly. Yeah, Andia Catho, well done. Yeah, and atheism is, watch the first episode for the atrocities of atheism. It is seriously scary. Now, I bring this in. I wish Sam was here now because I see Sam's missing.
No, I'm here.
Sam.
I'm here. I was in the background.
Okay. Now, I just want to mention that this is not for me to get into a long song and dance, and I'm not going to entertain your conspiracy theories about the Jesuits. But you need to understand excuse my French, every bullshit story that people tell me in the comments comes from the Soviets, right? Or comes from the French Revolution psychopaths. Right? Understand that your conspiracy theory comes from someone with a serious agenda, a sick psychopathic community. The idea behind the Jesuits, okay, is everyone wants to slam talk the Jesuits. So yes. Destroy the Jesuits, destroy the church. The Age of Reason and Enlightenment produced atheist thinkers, writers, and politicians radically opposed to the church. Voltaire said the only way to limit the church's influence and to bring about a secular society was to take control of the monastic orders, of the institutions of higher learning in Europe, which required the destruction of the Jesuits. He boasted that with the Jesuits defeated, there will be nothing left of the church.
Wow. So
you see, the Jesuits were founding universities everywhere. The Jesuits were highly trained, were intellectually trained scholars. I'm not saying there isn't a problem with the Jesuits today, because I'll say, yeah, there's a problem with the Jesuits today. Clearly, there's an issue there somewhere. But back then, everyone's issue is if you destroy the Jesuits, you take out the smartest people in the church. Yes, Sam?
And by the way, I just want to comment on that. And the reason I was in the background, because I got to see if my cat wants to come in. This is what happens in your live stream. Brethren, just to let you know the impact of this propaganda, and I'm a witness. In the 90s, and I don't want to take too much time because I want to give you time, but I want to confirm what you're saying about how the propaganda poisons minds. It poisoned me. In the 90s, I was raised on a steady diet of Chick tracks, Jack T. Chick. These are comic tracks, and Jack Chick worked with Alberto Rivera, who claimed to be a Jesuit planted by Jesuits to infiltrate Protestantism. And I was taught that Jesuits are actually the powers that are orchestrating events behind the scene to bring a one world government, one world religion with the Pope as the head. And then in reality, there was a black Pope, not that he was black, meaning skin color, but that this Pope was a puppet. Behind him, there was this black Pope, meaning he'd wear black garbs, part of the Masonry, and that everything is being infiltrated by the Jesuits. They're being used by Lucifer to bring a one world religion. And I got paranoid, and that's what made me hate the Catholic Church more. And they're working with the Masons, and that even Islam was created by the Catholic Church to control Arabia, but Muhammad went.
Sam, the Jews created Islam because they're the broom that will sweep. I don't know what it is. So Sam, no, Sam, it's the Jews did it.
No, Alberto Rivera said his Jesuit master told him it was a or the Catholic. There was no Jesuits.
We should do a talk just on Alberto Rivera. That guy. Oh my God!
So you know what I'm talking about.
It is phenomenal. You must go read about the life of Alberto Rivera. Holy moly!
You heard about him, right? Now, just
I've looked at him in depth. It's one of the funniest stories you ever read. Yeah.
No, honestly, let's do a session. But real quickly about Alberto Rivera. There was no Jesuits at the time, Muhammad, but he said his Jesuit master told him that the Catholic Church sent Khadija bin Khuwaylid. She was a Catholic nun. She was given orders to find a man in Arabia, to tame him, to control the Arabs for the Catholic Church. But Muhammad became buck wild and rebelled against the Catholic Church. They even have a comic. If you go to Chick Publications, the comic is called The Prophet, based on what Alberto Rivera was told. Now, as you comment on that, let me go open the door for my cat. So I'm listening.
Yeah, Alberto Rivera was, holy moly. Go read about that man's life. Seriously, holy moly. It's hysterical. Yeah, you have to laugh. I mean, it's so stupid. Right. So on that point, so understand the whole point of this enterprise is they can impose their version of religion. They can impose their version of morality, their version of the world, if they can destroy the Catholic Church. And the foundation, according to this guy, is to destroy the Jesuits, the thinkers of the church. However, there's someone else who came before him who also wanted to destroy the monastic orders. And he felt that the weak point of the Roman Catholic Church, the way to destroy it is to destroy the monasticism that was part of the church. Martin Luther saw monastic orders as corrupt and unnecessary. They stood in the way of his true faith. He believed that their practices and beliefs were contrary to the teachings of the Bible, and he was determined to see them removed from society. Now, in this letter to Spalatin, it's a long story there, but the mass and monasticism are already condemned and may not be tolerated to come to life again. Right? He's got other quotes on this as well. That's just one of them. Right? So he writes that he's going to destroy the monastics. Now, he also means the monastic orders. Right? Now, Luther was firmly against rationality when interpreting gospel, scripture, Bible. Okay? You couldn't use your brain. You had to let the voices in your head talk to you. Right? So faith alone does not mean, have faith. Faith means don't think, don't use your brain. Let the voices in your head talk to you, okay? Let the voices talk to you, because it's a violation of his beliefs to use reason. He abandoned reason, okay? He also abandoned philosophy, like I mentioned in the beginning, right?
You know what
So this is the irrational. Yes, Sam?
You know what I suspect? I suspect from what you're telling about Luther, and I hope God will bless your research and I learn from you, because I don't have time to study him. I have other things to do. I suspect because Luther was mentally disturbed and he was so demonized and he had serious psychological issues, that he realized that if works were something that he had to pursue to be at peace with God, then he was hopeless. So in order to appease his troubled mind, his sick mind, he came up with faith alone so that he could be at peace. So you know what? It doesn't matter what I do at the end of the day. It's faith alone.
Correct. Now,
so
he said, sin boldly, sin away, go knock yourself out. And he said, even if I should commit 1,000 murders a day, that's not going to affect Jesus' opinion of me.
See?
I mean, the guy was a megalomaniac. You got to read some of his stuff. The man was a megalomaniac. He was not a well man, but we'll get to that. Yeah. Okay, Religion for Atheists, a non-believer's guide to the uses of religion by Alain de Botton. He's actually got a talk on TED, if you want to watch it. He's actually got a TED talk going. I'm just going to mention a couple of things here. The error of modern atheism has been to overlook how many aspects of the faiths remain relevant even after their central tenets have been dismissed. Once we cease to feel that we must prostrate ourselves, we are free to discover religions as repositories of a myriad of ingenious concepts with which we can try to assuage a few of the most persistent and unattended ills of secular life. In other words, let's not replace religion. Let's just take God out of it and reuse the religion for our purposes. The premise of this book is that it must be possible to remain a committed atheist and nevertheless find religions useful and consoling, importing certain of their ideas and practices into the secular. Okay? We are interested in ways in which religions deliver sermons, promote morality, engender a spirit of community, and we will have a selective reverence for religious rituals and concepts. Didn't we see that with the Satanists? We've seen it with the atheists. We've seen it with, and we will see it with all the secular guys. They all want to rip off the Catholic Church. They all want to rip off religion, but they don't want to obey God. None of them do. See, so atheists steal from God, quite bluntly.
Exactly.
Right? Over and over, you'll see this, yeah?
Exactly.
So let's have a quick look at Jean-Jacques Rousseau. The first man who fenced in a piece of land and said, this land belongs to me, and he found people naive enough to believe him, that man was the true founder of civil society. In other words, he was a right bastard. From how many crimes, wars, and murders, from how many horrors and misfortunes, might not anyone have saved mankind by pulling up the stakes or filling up the ditch? In other words, if you didn't own anything, there'd be no theft. If you had no guns, there'd be no murder. If you had no property, there would be no laws about property. No one would own anything, and therefore no one would be jealous of anybody, and there would be no crime in the hearts of men. You see? So, and crying to his fellows, beware of listening to this impostor. You are undone if you once forget that the fruits of the earth belong to us all, and the earth belongs to nobody. See, this is Rousseau, one of the great thinkers of the Enlightenment, one of the greatest minds to ever live. The man was a socialist. He didn't want you to own. You will own nothing, and you will be happy. That's the World Economic Forum. Sounds familiar, sir?
It's happening. Yeah, it sounds exactly like the agenda today. Wow. And it's sadly, it's spreading fast like cancer. May God save us from it.
Yes, you will own nothing and you will be happy. Atheism, you must understand, atheism and socialism, atheism and communism are two sides of the same coin. They are integral to each other. They cannot be separated. If you're an atheist, effectively speaking, you have embraced communism, whether you admit it or not, because the doctrine of atheism is communistic and satanic. Robespierre would quote passages from the Social Contract, right, which is Rousseau's book. Now, Robespierre, I mentioned Robespierre Mohammed, right, the big-time murderer of the French Revolution, the creator of the cult of reason. He would quote from Jean-Jacques Rousseau while simultaneously ordering tens of thousands of people to be murdered. And Rousseau's discourse on the origin and basis of inequality among men and the social contract are cornerstones in modern political and social thought, even read by people like Marx, of course. Right? For instance, by the way, Robespierre, the cult of the supreme being, mandated a more comfortable, because it's comfortable, simple style of dress for all citizens and featured a blue period costume and hat. In other words, everybody wears the same clothes, just like they did in communist China under Mao, because it was comfortable. You see, you're all wearing the same. No one looks richer. No one looks poorer. Everyone's the same, you see, because that's socialist. To paraphrase Robespierre, it was the despotism of the citizen over the individual. In other words, communism, not individual rights. The rights of the individual were not respected. This is what atheists tell us are the most rational, wisest men to ever live. Atheism or Death. On October 10, 1793, the convention, the French atheist government, decreed that the provisional government of France would be revolutionary, right? The jihad would continue until peace had been attained. See, the jihad has to bring peace, Sam. Robespierre defined the meaning of this without ambiguity. He said, the aim of the constitutional government is to preserve the republic. The aim of the revolutionary government is to establish it. So the constitutional government preserves the republic, but the revolution, the jihad. Now, what is the legal definition of jihad? If we go into the Reliance of the Traveler, jihad is legally defined in the Sharia, or the Shari definition, as jihad is warfare to establish Islam. So they were using warfare to establish atheism. Yeah, look, yeah, whatever. Yeah, they're all atheists, they're all madmen. So it is thus subject, so therefore, the revolutionary government is subject to less uniform and less rigorous laws. In other words, we don't have to respect the law. In fact, we can make up the law as we go. We're above the law, you see. The revolutionary government owes to good citizens all the protection of the nation. Everyone who listens to what we say, well, we protect them, right? But it owes to the enemies of the people only death. Sam, your thoughts before I go on.
So basically, you see the connection. Islam and atheism are from the same pit of hell. If you're not following, there is a source behind these movements. Guys, read the sources and see what he's saying. There is a power behind Islam and atheism. It's the same power, but manifesting differently. It's satanic. The same Satan that molested Muhammad spiritually, inspired him to start this system, is the same Satan that filled these bastards with the same hatred, the same mindset that he filled Muhammad, but it's simply a different manifestation. Atheism and Islam are both two sides of the same coin from the same source, Satan, and they have the same agenda. Destroy Christianity, destroy the church, destroy the Bible, and impose their agenda, because Satan doesn't care if you're Muslim or atheist. He just doesn't want you to follow Jesus Christ and belong to his church. Keep that in mind.
Right. Suffer little children. So Jean-Jacques Rousseau, philosopher of compassion, fierce defender of the weak against the strong, the man who never tired of talking about equality and justice and virtue, who wrote a long book about the right way. So Rousseau wrote a book about how to raise children. He sent all his own children to the Paris Foundling Hospital immediately upon birth. He never knew or even saw any of his children. He wrote a book about raising a child, and he sent every one of his children straight to the orphanage. He convinced his lover to abandon the children for the sake of her honor, because they weren't married. He later confessed, "I trembled at the thought of entrusting them to a family ill brought up, to be still worse educated. The risk of the education of the founding hospital was much less." See, better the orphanage than some random family, right? So, of course, the best account of Rousseau's actions in disposing of his children at the hospital is that he callously eliminated them from his life because they interfered with the way that he wanted to live. Of course, abandoning his children doesn't make his social theories false, now does it? It makes him a great man. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I see I missed... Yeah?
Isn't it ironic, a guy who's talking about family, who it's like a homosexual trying to teach people about heterosexual intimacy and how to make the most out of it. Yeah, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, it says here, sorry, I didn't fix the slide. I need to fix this. But Rousseau teaches a form of moral sense theory that makes conscience the sole and infallible voice of what is right and wrong. Okay, so let me actually just lift this up so we can read it. He espouses a form of moral sense theory that makes conscience the only voice of right and wrong, your conscience. So if you've got a crappy conscience, well, if your conscience says, diddling 5-year-olds, that's good, Muhammad, go for it. Well, your conscience spoke, right? Rousseau's moral view can be summarized in 8 points, but A being, all the morality of your acts is in the judgment that we ourselves pass on them. This seems to be subjectivism. This is. So the morality of your action is the judgment that you pass on it. Well, I think it's okay to steal. I don't have a problem with it. Great man. What do you think, Sam?
Dude, he even makes Muhammad look like he's this evil, wicked, deviant because of how moral this guy is, man. I'm now about to sign up. You just convinced me I'm in the wrong religion, dude. I'm going to be a socialist atheist. What great value and virtues.
Fantastic. So let's look at John Adams, the founding father of the US, the second US president, is a founding father. You have rights antecedent to all earthly government, rights that cannot be repealed or restrained by human laws, rights derived from the great legislator of the universe. He's talking about God. He's saying that your rights come from God. God has enshrined these rights into the structure of the fabric of the universe. Atheists deny this. Now, at some point, I want to finish a presentation on the Christianity, the Christian belief of the founding fathers, and of the...
That would be great.
Because the stories, the falsehoods about this is just crazy. They're trying to turn them all into atheists or socialists or something. Yeah. Yeah, I've got a lot of notes on that. I just need to finish it, but I've really... Yeah.
That would be great, because what I was told about, at least Thomas Jefferson, he was a deist, that's what they say. And in his Bible, he removed every mention of Jesus's miracles and virgin birth and just ended.
That's not true. There's that whole story about the Bible is a lie. That whole story is a complete fabrication. That the facts are different.
You see, that's why we need something like that, because that's the propaganda that Thomas Jefferson's Bible. He was a deist who didn't believe in the supernatural, part of the Masonic Lodge, which I don't know how evil and infiltrated was at that time. So it would be good to have a corrective with the facts.
Now, I'll do that at some point. Okay, so let's look at John Adams. Let's look at his view. Now, remember, there was the American Revolution. So the reason I bring this up is you had the French Revolution, which was godless, atheist, and extremely violent. And as you saw, perverted, perverse. It was crudely violent in the extreme, right? And yes, nihilism is the epitome of atheism. That I believe is true. So let's have a look. So let's look at the American Revolution. John Adams believed in liberty. He advocated for the rights or property, that is the content of American liberty, and whose defense is the central reason our government was instituted. The exact opposite of Rousseau, you see? He defends, the American government defends property rights. Socialists do not. They're Democrats. He said liberties are not the grants of princes and parliaments. They come from God, which is obviously not a Christian statement at all. The moment the idea is admitted into society that property is not sacred as the laws of God, and that there is not a force of law and public justice to protect it, anarchy and tyranny commence. So hence America is, according to John Adams, on a slide into tyranny. If thou shalt not covet and thou shalt not steal were not commandments of heaven, they must be made inviolable precepts in every society before that society can be civilized or made free. Thou shalt not covet and thou shalt not steal. Those are that's in the atheist 10 rules for life, right, Sam? Thou shalt not steal.
But of course, because atheism is the epitome of perfect moral virtue, but you're delusional because you're thinking too much of Martin Luther being on the pot.
I'm delutheranal. What? Property must be secured or liberty cannot exist. To be commanded, we do not consent. We will not be told, right? Government should be for the preservation of internal peace, virtue, and good order, as well as the defense of lives, liberties, and property. This goes against the French Revolution. This is entirely the opposite view. From a moral standpoint, from a legal standpoint, it is entirely opposite. This is the opposite of socialism. Each individual of society has a right to be protected in the enjoyment of his life. Now, don't forget what it said in the French Revolution. Those who do not become atheists, those who will not support the government, must die. That was the French Revolution's law. Atheism or death. This is a completely, you must understand how revolutionary, and I don't mean in the violent sense, just how incredible the American Constitution was and is as a document. You have no idea the mess it came out of. The fact that that document was written in the kind of sick darkness that was in the world at that point. The American Constitution is an amazing document. So, in the enjoyment of his life, liberty, and property, no part of the property of any individual can with justice be taken from him or applied to public use without his own consent. This is what the Greeks were doing. When I opened this, the third slide I did was about the Greeks, where they were talking about the idea of taking everyone's property and giving it to the public. That is socialism. America goes against that. These ideas are tyranny. This is oppression, totalitarianism. Nip the shoots of arbitrary power in the bud is the only maxim which can ever preserve the liberties of any people. Be not wheedled out of your liberty by hypocrisy, chicanery, and cowardice. John Adams, because he recognized an enemy to liberty is an enemy to human nature. Sam, any thoughts before I go on?
So just to emphasize, is this why we have an attempt to try to destroy the Constitution?
Yes.
Because, and you're saying, in light of its historical context, the Constitution was revolutionary, and it is based on biblical principles,
yes,
not on rationalist atheist thinking. And that's why the atheists who hate God see that they have to erase the Constitution.
Yes.
There you go, guys. You're hearing it, right? So there you go.
So think about it. All of those people who don't know what a woman is, they're all woke. They're all atheist. Many of them are Satanists. They're all atheists. I thought they're rational. You can see they are enemies of freedom. They are totalitarian. They are seeking to remove liberty and life, as we know. Okay, so this is by John W. Whitehead and John Conlon. It's an older document, it's a legal document called The Establishment of the Religion of Secular Humanism and its First Amendment Implications. There's a growing concern in contemporary academia regarding the nature of modern society. Quaker philosopher Alton Trueblood, in viewing what he believes to be a pagan society in the United States. Now, don't forget, atheism is linked to paganism, Greek paganism, literally paganism. And you saw one historian has called it the rise of modern paganism. As remarked, only by terrific moral recovery are we going to keep the world from becoming a dark age. Harvard law professor Jay Bergman has written, our whole culture seems to be facing the possibility of a kind of nervous breakdown, I'd say. The problem, as seen by Trueblood and Berman, is the deepening secularism that has taken hold of the present culture. Secularism, or what is called secular humanism, poses a serious constitutional quandary because its purpose is to eliminate traditional theism as a significant aspect of reality by forcing traditional theism from the arena of public discourse and American institutional life. Secular humanism aims to erase Christianity completely from America and impose itself. Transcendence has been, shall we say, declared inoperative, in other words, God, by the major agencies that officially define reality. Okay? The historical and traditional definition of religion. The religion of the First Amendment is traditional theism. The religion of the First Amendment in America is traditional Christian religion, and in particular, Christianity. Not all religion, because America's Constitution and the First Amendment was designed to protect Christian belief. Justice Joseph Story, a leading Unitarian of his time who served on the Supreme Court from 1811 to 1845, has said, probably at the time of the adoption of the Constitution and of the First Amendment, the general, if not the universal sentiment in America was that Christianity ought to receive encouragement from the state, so far as was not incompatible with the private rights of conscience and the freedom of religious worship. Christianity ought to receive encouragement from the state. An attempt to level all religions and to make it a matter of state policy to hold all in utter indifferences would have created universal disapproval, if not universal indignation. In other words, the First Amendment wasn't designed, Islam is on the same par as, no. Separation of the church and state was not mentioned once in the entirety of the US Constitution, but it is mentioned by Marx, Lenin, Stalin, Engels, a bunch of Satanists, and a whole bunch of atheists. Yes. The whole story that you've been told about your Constitution is false. Right? The First Amendment was not meant to prevent the establishment of Christianity as a religion. I'm going to repeat that. The First Amendment was never meant to prevent the establishment of Christianity as a religion, but to prevent one Christian denomination from dominating the others. The framers had no intention of eradicating traditional Christianity via the First Amendment, because to them, religion entailed a relationship of man to a supreme being. The founding fathers said religion entailed a relationship of man to a supreme being, which is crazy if you're not religious. James Madison termed religion as the duty which we owe to our Creator and the manner of discharging it. Madison, as well as the majority of the founders, was a theist. The framers never intended a separation of church and state.
In other words, if we were to truly follow the Constitution, America would be a sort of paradise on earth, right? It would be a paradise on earth in that you are to worship the creator God of the Bible.
Yes.
But you can be free to be Catholic, Orthodox, Protestant, and you cannot kill each other just because you don't belong to the same denomination. Yes. And no one branch of Christianity can dominate the political scheme. In other words, you can't just have Catholics in government or Protestants.
Correct.
You have to believe in God. You have to believe in the Bible. You have to be a Christian who believes in the God of the Bible, worship Jesus Christ as Lord, but your denomination doesn't matter. Now, if we could truly implement that Constitution, then we could all have a sort of paradise on earth. But sadly, when you put imperfect, demonized humans in power, they even butcher something so perfect as the Constitution.
But what this means is that Christianity stands above all other religions. In the Constitution, Christianity stands above all other religions. Look, I attended a school for emotionally disturbed teachers, So the Magna Carta is not something that we discussed at length. The Magna Carta was an amazing document. I mean, obviously it's been violated. And clearly, just like the American Constitution, Hitler never abolished the Constitution of the Weimar Republic. It was never abolished. He simply ignored it. The American Constitution has not been abolished. It's just being ignored. Just bear that in mind. Superstition. Now I'm going to veer slightly. So we're halfway through the presentation. I'm going to go another 5 or 10 minutes. Is that okay, Sam? So I have said in the beginning, and I'm going to say this bluntly because we're going to go into much length on this. Atheism is legally a religion. Atheist organizations went to the Supreme Court to argue, and they won, that atheism is a religion. Your atheist friends are lying to you. Atheism is a religion. They won in court. They made claim. In fact, they changed the definition of what a religion is. You see, instead of having a functional definition of religion, in fact, instead of having, shall we say, a transcendent definition of religion, as you saw framed by the founders, they created what they call a functional definition of religion. Religion does stuff, right? Religion does the following. It makes people be nice to each other. It makes people, gives them somewhere to go on Sunday and have picnics together. Sadly, Sam, can you think of a theologian who might have come up with a functional definition of religion instead of saying what God is, but what God does? Can you think of a theologian who might have come up with such a concept? Can you think of a guy?
What God was, but we don't know what God is. No, it has nothing to do with Muhammad, Islam, volitionism.
No. It's this guy. He's from the same place as that dude.
Oh, him too, huh? Because even Muhammad, believe it or not, in Islam, you can only know what Allah does, but you don't really know Allah, because though it's Gnostic, it's also agnostic. So you're saying again, there's a relationship between this dude,
guy from a country like this who changed the definition of God. So there's a guy called Muhammad Lucifer, something like that. He viewed
all connected.
He viewed religion. He viewed God as not. He wasn't interested in the nature of God. He was interested in what God does, right? So the atheists used basically that foundation as what religion does, and they turned it into a functional definition. We will discuss that. And they used that as a way to say that, well, atheism is now a religion by that definition. Thanks, Martin. You're a great guy.
So I want people to emphasize this. Here's Martin Luther, who comes out of Christian tradition, who focuses on what God does, not so much what God is, which is actually Islam. If you ask some of the Muslims, that at the end of the day, you know Allah by his will and his deeds, but you don't really know what Allah is. So I've said this, that Islam is Gnostic and agnostic, in that Allah is known by what he desires or wills and does, but his nature is something that's mysterious. So they know Allah by what he does, volitionism, not so much by what he is. So Martin Luther comes out of that same tradition, and yet he claimed to be a Christian. Man, I can't wait for you to expose this guy.
So understand. So it's a minefield researching Luther, Sam. I said I'm having to go into the original German. My German is not terrible, but it's not that great either. Of course, people are going to say, well, you see, Lloyd doesn't speak perfect German. So therefore, nothing he says can. Man, seriously, whenever I quote Luther, that's a Jesuit fabrication. That's a Catholic conspiracy. It's like, whatever. Okay, so superstition. Okay, socialist. Okay, humanism also went to court. Humanism, secular humanism, is a religion. I need you to understand this. The founders of secular humanism called it a religion. It was explicitly, specifically created as a religion. The founders all said it's a religion. It went to court to prove its case that it's a religion. It's a religion. And they say, well, you see, I'm not religion. I'm a secular atheist. I'm a secular humanist. When I was on with Nuria Khan, and she's a lovely person, but when it comes to her bringing on guests to talk about Christianity, the people that she brings on are just...
Who is that again? Who?
Nuria Khan. Nuria Khan. I was on with her. Yeah.
She's an atheist, isn't she? She was a Muslim, became an atheist.
She says, look, I'm not religious. I'm a secular humanist. The problem is secular humanism was founded explicitly as a religion.
I hope you reach out to her, because you did a great job on her show, but I hope you can influence the show that she left.
No, because she brought a guy on to talk about atheism. She never invited me back after she brought on a guy to talk about Christianity. and the guy was talking about the Nag Hammadi scrolls, all the Gnostic scrolls, and he was calling that Christianity. And I was like, and then I said a few things about atheist history, and then I got banned by the mods, and then I got blah blah blah. So superstition, a belief or practice resulting from ignorance, fear of the unknown, trust in magic or chance, and of course we know the French revolutionaries, all of these guys were into their magic. So superstition is a notion maintained despite evidence to the contrary. So therefore Voltaire was superstitious. Okay, so basically it's belief that is not based on reason or scientific knowledge. So therefore these atheists were not scientific whatsoever. All of these can be accurately ascribed to atheist humanists. These claims here, as we've shown, right? Now, Churchill, Madison, and Lincoln, socialism is the philosophy of failure, the creed of ignorance, and the gospel of envy. That's Winston Churchill. The vice of capitalism is the unequal sharing of blessings. The virtue of socialism is the equal sharing of misery. In other words, shortages will be equally divided amongst the poor. Right? Now, let's have a look here. According to James Madison, the US Constitution is intended to provide equal protection to unequal abilities, but now we have equality, which is socialist equality. This is what Abraham Lincoln meant when in 1864 he wrote to the Working Men's Association of New York that property is the fruit of labor, property is desirable, it is a positive good in the world. That some should be rich shows that others may become rich, and hence it's just encouragement to industry and enterprise. This is based on biblical teaching, as much as they will. Oh, by the way, Abraham Lincoln, everybody knows, was a vampire hunter. Just so you know. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
And by the way, it was he was a plant by the Jesuits, according to Alberto Rivera. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah. So, who wrote these words? Worlds I would destroy forever, since I can create no world, since my call they notice never, coursing dumb in magic whirl. Feelings, 1836. Who do you think wrote that? I would destroy all worlds forever because I cannot create a world. No one listens to my call, and here I am in my magic spell, in my magical vortex. Heaven I have forfeited, I know it full well. My soul, which was once true to God, is chosen for hell. The Pale Maiden, a Ballad, 1837. Who wrote that?
Well, I mean, notice he can destroy a world but can't build it. But man, that last part hurt me. Let me read that again. Thus, heaven I forfeited, I know it full well. So he's admitting there's a heaven. My soul, once true to God, is chosen for hell. So he's admitting there's a God. He deserves hell. I don't know. I'd be shocked. But whoever said this is like
he's a Christian. No, he's a Christian, Sam, because you know he's a Christian. He didn't forfeit heaven and give up his soul. And what the hell?
And now you got me curious. Who is this?
Okay, let's try again. How so? I plunge without fail my blood-black sword into your soul. Thou, that art that God neither wants nor wists, it leaps to the brain from hell's black mists, till heart is bewitched, till sense is real. With Satan I have struck my deal. Satan chalks the signs, he beats time for me. I play the death march, fast and free. The Fiddler, 1837. Who could have written this?
So wait, is this the same fiddler when they say the fiddler on the roof? Is that what's coming from?
No. That's different.
Now, wait, because now you got me freaking out, Lloyd. Who is this dude?
Who is this dude?
Yeah, I don't. Oh, Karl Marx. Are you kidding me?
No.
So wait, he recognizes God exists. There's a hell, there's Satan, and he recognizes he sold himself to Satan, and he recognizes this.
Yeah. Look now, my blood-dark sword shall stab unerringly into your soul. God neither knows nor honors art. The hellish vapors rise and fill the brain, till I go mad and my heart is utterly changed. See the sword? The Prince of Darkness sold it to me. He beats the time and gives the signs. Ever more boldly I play the dance of death.
So
does that sound just a fractional satanic, Sam?
This is actually his words, guys. He's not making it up. Actual words. So here's another proof that a man knows God of the Bible exists. There's a hell, but he chose Satan and sold himself to Satan and rather go to hell and follow Satan than Jesus Christ. This again proves the point. Even people who know God exists hate him so much that they would willfully side with Satan over against God. Here it is. This
So, do you understand why? And he's not the only one of his crew that wrote, shall we say, satanic works, satanic words. Would you have thought that this was Karl Marx?
I was freaking out. It sounded like someone who was having a struggle because he knows God exists, but he's so corrupt and sinful that he feels it's over for him. There's no hope for him to turn to God. I didn't know it was him. That's why you freaking me out. So they exist. Guys, most socialists are atheists. He wasn't. He knew God exists. He knew Satan was real. And he knew he sold himself to the devil and would rather be with Satan because he didn't want to submit to God. There you go. This is your socialist, Marxist, communist roots, atheists. This is it. Satanists.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to do 1 or 2 more slides, Sam, and then I call it a night, if you don't mind. I'll try and be quick. I don't want to go very much longer. So Karl Marx. Now, James Lindsay has called him a Satanist. Now, I've been saying this for a while. I've been speaking about this for a while. But now even James Lindsay has publicly called Karl Marx a Satanist. Now, don't forget, to be a member of the Communist Party, you must be an atheist. It is required. Now, everyone loves to say Karl Marx was a Christian. Those people can kiss my ass. Right? Of course, they will throw him under the bus at the first opportunity. But of course, I mean, the man is an arch atheist. He created modern socialism, right? Modern communism, right? We'll get into the definition between those two words, but of course, I mean, he was an atheist through and through. He was one of theirs, right? Bruno Bauer is Karl Marx's buddy. Everything that the historical Christ is, everything that is said of Jesus, everything that is known of Jesus, belongs to the world of imagination, that is, of the imagination of the Christian community, and therefore has nothing to do with any man who belongs to the real world. Bruno Bauer, Critique of the Evangelical History of the Synoptics, 1842. Bruno Bauer was the first academic theologian to affirm the non-historicity of Jesus. He claimed that Mark was the original gospel and that Mark invented the historicity of Jesus and thereby invented Christianity. Oddly enough, Bruno Bauer was a good friend of Karl Marx and mentor to Karl Marx. So Jesus mythicism, modern Jesus mythicism, started with Karl Marx's friend here. So Jesus mythicists stress that there are no works written by Jesus and that the supposed non-Christian sources that do mention him are Christian forgeries, blah, blah, blah. The mythicist position centers on a threefold argument pioneered by German scholar Bruno Bauer, who lived from 1809 to 1882. The New Testament is not historically reliable. There are no non-Christian contemporary sources about Jesus. Christian faith is modeled on ancient pagan stories. Now, I'll jump to the end here. Bruno Bauer made a lot of funny claims. So did many people in that era who copied after him. However, those claims have fallen apart through modern scholarship, new findings, new archaeological research. Okay, so now they've had to change the arguments. Of course, they still throw these out there. So, Christian faith is modeled on ancient pagan stories. From 1839 to 41, Bauer was a teacher, a mentor, and a close friend of Karl Marx. Becoming a militant atheist, he earned the names the Messiah of Atheism. That's fascinating. The Robespierre of Theology. Interesting. He concluded that the New Testament Gospels were forgeries, Jesus had never existed, and that religion was a form of self-delusion that fettered intellectual freedom. His radical theology resulted in his termination from a teaching position at the University of Bonn. Yeah. The Soviets used Bauer, and so do the Muslims, and so do the atheists. By the way, that's why I was saying atheists use Soviet communist propaganda, and yet they're not communists. The Soviets used Bauer's fierce attacks on Christianity as anti-religious agitprop, and one modern biographer has recognized Bauer as the world's first atheist theologian. Karl Marx's friends make pathetic sources of both theology and history. Sam, your thoughts, and I'll do one more slide.
Now, brethren, understand why this friend of Marx, and I've heard of Bauer, called the Bauer theory, from liberal critical scholars.
I need to talk about the Bauer thesis as well, yeah.
And from Bart Ehrman. Now, understand the agenda here. Make the connection. Make the connection. They know that as long as you believe there's an historical Jesus and the Gospels are historically reliable, they cannot deceive you into following their agenda. So what they do is they destroy your faith in the Gospels as history, show you their forgeries and lies, not eyewitness accounts, and that the historical Jesus was made up. So once you don't have your foundation in Christ, you are now open for them to indoctrinate you and follow their agenda. So Bauer is being used of the devil, was, and I would sincerely think, being a Luciferian, like Karl Marx, he knows Jesus is real, but he knows he has to destroy your faith. When I say he knows, present tense, he's dead, but you get what I'm talking about. He had to destroy your faith in Jesus, but as a Luciferian who knows that Satan is real, then he knows God is real. He doesn't want you to know that, because as long as you believe in Jesus, they cannot brainwash you. They cannot deceive you. And notice the theory that Mark is the first gospel. Sadly, even among professing conservative Christian scholarship like Daniel Wallace, they'll tell you Mark was the first gospel written. Matthew, Luke used Mark, edited Mark, changed Mark, and John is later more theologically developed. And this is even a view among conservatives, even though historically the church believed Matthew was the first gospel. But go ahead, brother. I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, no. The Catholic Biblicist says, ironic, Bible was fired from academia for teaching these views, but today these charlatans rule academia. And that is true and sad. Okay, so I'll do one more slide. This is my final slide. This is from Friedrich Engels for the 21st century. Friedrich Engels is this guy here, Marx's buddy, as you know. They wrote what was called the Communist Confession of Faith, because when you're a Catholic, you have, look, I'm not a Catholic, so I know everyone tries to tell me I'm Catholic somehow, but I'm not. You have the Confession of Faith, right? So this is your catechism. So they wrote something called the Communist Confession of Faith, right? And then when it was due to be published, Engels went to Marx like the day before and said, hey, look, calling it the Communist Confession of Faith would look religious, would make it look like you've ripped off Catholicism, which was the case. Can you change the name to make it something less religious? So they called it the Communist Manifesto. It's not a book on theology. Sorry, it's not a book on economics. It's a theological treatise. It's a book on theology. Do you understand how you've been lied to your whole life?
Yeah,
Sorry?
But they didn't want to put the word religion in it, even though it's a religion.
Yeah, yeah. So the scene is hell. Friedrich Engels in his epic poem depicts Danton, Voltaire, and Hegel welcoming Satan. Satan is back from a fact-finding tour to Earth where he had been training freethinkers, atheists, in their campaign to transform men into godless self-gods. Hegel is explaining his strategy in this battle. And Hegel, whose mouth until this moment grimness locked, suddenly rose up giant high and spoke, I consecrated all my life to science, just like the average atheist, isn't it? I preached atheism with all my strength. Atheism is not a belief, Sam. You don't preach it. Friedrich Engels. So understand. So let me continue here. Hold on. I see I made a wrong mistake again with my slides. This is my final slide, right? So let me go here. The date was December 1842. The place, Neumünster, close to Zurich. And he says here, in the print shop of a certain Johann Friedrich Hess, a typesetter for the Literarisches Comptoir, which German radicals use as a kind of lightning rod for new publications, especially at risk of censorship. Okay, it had this title, The Insolently Threatened Yet Miraculously Rescued Bible, or The Triumph of Faith, to wit, the terrible, yet true, and salutary history of the erstwhile licentiate Bruno Bauer, how the same, seduced by the devil, fallen from the true faith, became chief devil, and was well and truly ousted in the end, a Christian epic in 4 cantos. Now I'm going to put this back up here. See, I made him. So I want to just end with this for today. Atheism has, Karl Marx, that's fascinating. Yeah, I mean, he uses capital. Yeah. So atheism has closer ties to Satanism than people are aware of, as we've covered in the series so far. Karl Marx used satanic imagery. He sold his soul to Satan. Bruno Bauer sold his soul to Satan, right? Yep. Engels sells his soul to Satan. So does his co-writer of the Communist Confession of Faith, later renamed the Communist Manifesto. Atheism is anti-church. It is the anti-church. The Satanism of Anton LaVey and the Temple of Satan both claim to be atheistic. Exactly. Satan is in opposition to Christianity, not a real being, supposedly. However, they claim that Satan loves you and the Satanists are the good guys. And I'll leave it at that. Sam, I'm done tonight.
Brethren, take this away. Take this to heart. These men, he just gave you Karl Marx. I want you to, if you forget anything, remember this and take these sessions, upload them, study them, bombard atheists with the hopes that God will awaken them. And also, the Bible says the laborer is worthy of his wages. Luke 10:7. I gave you the link to his YouTube channel. It's pinned in its description box. Go subscribe. Pray for him. God preserve him and support him financially. I know we're not rich, but God can take two mites and do wonders with it. The laborer is worthy of his wages. Pray for this brother. Support him. Make his channel go viral. Make these sessions go viral. Invite him. But I want you to walk away with this. Before I end it, I'm going to make two comments. One question for him and one question for you. It's more question and comment. These men knew God existed. From the quote from Karl Marx, he showed you. Karl Marx acknowledges God exists, heaven is real, hell is real, Satan is real. But again, obviously they're demonized, but they gave themselves to Satan. They were so demonized, they chose to follow Satan, knowing they deserve hell. Like in the words of Karl Marx, he quoted it. Karl Marx is saying, that my soul's going to go to hell. So in their demonization, being so filled with the devil, they knew they deserved hell. They still didn't care because that's how much they hated God. This should cure you of your naivete that if someone is given arguments that God exists, that they will submit to the evidence. No, these men knew God existed and they still hated him and didn't want to have anything to do with him. And that confirms the Bible. What do I mean? Satan knows God is real. He knows because he's spoken to God. He's stood before God face to face. He knows Jesus, Son of God. The demons knew who Jesus was when he showed up on earth. And he still doesn't repent and would choose to be destroyed by the God that he knows exists and created him, then to repent and turn and be saved. Don't be delusional. Not everyone wants God. There are people who know God exists and they hate God nonetheless, and they'd rather reign with Satan in hell, which there's no reigning in hell, it's destruction, than live with Jesus. So keep that in mind. Now, my question for you, brother, sadly, Lord willing, next weekend, Thursday, I got to travel again. Could you do Wednesday?
Yeah, shouldn't be a problem.
So, brethren, sometimes my schedule will conflict where I have to leave. Next weekend, God willing, if the Lord wills, Thursday I have to I'm heading out for the weekend. God willing, next Wednesday, we're going to continue around the same time. Next Wednesday, he said he's available, and I thank God for him being gracious enough to make his schedule flexible. So next Wednesday, Lord willing. And secondly, for the rest of you, sadly, Kelly Powers was a disappointment yesterday. I wrote 2 articles refuting his objections. Now, let me know in the comments, do you want me to do responses to his objections against Mary? And if so, the first part will be today in about 2 hours. So are you guys on board with me going live 2 hours from now, God willing, refuting Kelly Powers' objections against Mary that I thought we were going to engage, but you can see he was not equipped. So if yes, put a 1 and I'll schedule it. So 2 hours from now, we go live if the Lord wills. Now, brother, any final comments? We're done.
No, I mean, look, just remember that we showed how Satanists claim that Satanist doesn't exist. It's like Satan has nothing to do with Satanism. Nothing to do with Satanism, nothing to do with Islam, nothing to do, whatever, nothing to do with,
Nothing.
yeah.
Nothing.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah. I think the problem with you, Lloyd, is you haven't spent as much time on the toilet constipated like Martin Luther. That's what I think.
Look, so
your brain,
yeah.
You're not thinking rationally.
So guys, I mean, I have to be very careful with the things I say here. And when I'm not sure of something, I think I try and say, look, but I'm bringing evidence that also leads to a point if I don't have anything definitive. So hopefully you see that the work I'm showing, these are legitimate sources. These are books. I'm not just making up stuff. I'm quoting you articles, yes. and mostly I'm doing screen captures.
Glory to
okay?
God.
And these are all factual things. Why were we not taught this in university? I have to ask, why were we not taught this side of it? Why are we given half quotes? Why are we being lied to? So understand, atheists don't have a leg to stand on. Atheists are satanic, totalitarian, and they are communist. Let's be blunt. Let's be honest. They are also religion. They also want to replace Christianity. All of them are fighting. So look, take the facts, fight back.
Amen.
Information is power, I think.
Hallelujah. And brethren, honor this man by praying for him, supporting him financially, and you guys with YouTube channels, invite him. We need to, I'm not kidding, invite him. We need this material to go viral for the glory of Christ. And as long as I have breath and health and holiness, and I don't fail Jesus, and I have a channel, my channel will be his platform, so that the Lord will exalt him for his glory. So I appreciate you, brother, and I appreciate it. So
yeah, thank you guys. So
next Wednesday, God willing. All right.
Okay.
So see you guys in 2 hours. Refuting Kelly, God willing. So God bless you. Christ is risen. Risen indeed. Take care.